If the test results confirmed the younger son wasn't his child, it would indisputably mean Mu-ru had betrayed him. He naturally wouldn't keep Mu-ru by his side and would drive her and the bastard out of the Shin family together. From then on, there was no one left by his side. All these years, he had maintained an indifferent attitude toward his children, cutting ties with his daughter and showing neither care nor concern for his son, always keeping his guard up. Shin Yu-hong suddenly realized that in the end, all his efforts had come to nothing. Chapter 74. Indeed, it's not his child. The next morning, at Dakang Hospital, Mu-ru sat by the bed, having finished her nutritious breakfast. She softly said to Shin Yu-hong, "Honey, could you pass me a tissue, please?" Shin Yu-hong was lost in thought, holding his phone, wondering why the paternity test results hadn't arrived yet. Seeing Shin Yu-hong unresponsive, Mu-ru called out again, "Honey, Only then did Shin Yu-hong snap out of it, raising his eyes to look at Mu-ru. "Rua, what did you just say? Pass me some tissues, please." Shin Yu-hong gave an "oh," then stood up and placed the tissue box in front of Mu-ru. Mu-ru wiped her lips with a tissue and said, "Why do you seem so distracted? Is it work? If you're busy, you don't have to stay here with me." "Yes, it's something at the company. I'll head back to the office then. Aunt Lee will come over to take care of you in a bit." Shin Yu-hong hadn't rested well the night before, spending the whole time wondering whether the child was really his. Mu-ru smiled and said, "All right, go ahead and focus on your work. I'm fine here anyway. It's better for you to earn more money for our child." Hearing Mu-ru say this, Shin Yu-hong forced an unnatural smile. "You should rest well and don't worry about the money. Call me if anything comes up." Shin Yu-hong drove back to the company. As he passed by the business department, he glanced inside and saw Shin Rui sitting at his desk on a phone call, seemingly discussing something with a client. He let out a deep sigh. The director of the business department noticed Shin Yu-hong standing there and quickly asked, "President Shin, do you have any instructions? Nothing's wrong." Shin Yu-hong frowned and then walked away. Despite the urgent processing, the staff at the forensic institution were not working last night. Shin Yu-hong had to wait until afternoon to receive the appraisal reports. With a nervous heart, Shin Yu-hong opened the 2 appraisal reports. The results of the 2 appraisal reports were consistent. Expert opinion: the biological parent-child relationship between the 2 samples is not supported. Although he had mentally prepared himself, the moment Shin Yu-hong saw the result, he felt his blood boiling throughout his body. His lips trembled slightly, and he was so angry that he couldn't speak. All along, he had doted on Mu-ru in every possible way, even going so far as to marry her despite his children's objections. But now it has come to this. At this moment, Shin Yu-hong was well aware that the child Mu-ru gave birth to was not his, which undoubtedly meant she had cheated on him. The evidence provided by Shin Rui and his sister was probably all true. Shin Yu-hong immediately logged into his online banking to check Mu-ru's spending records. You never know until you check. And the findings can be shocking. Over the past few years, Mu-ru had frequently visited a clothing store, swiping her card for tens of thousands each time. However, this store wasn't a high-end brand. It didn't even have a traceable address online. Shin Yu-hong dug deeper and uncovered the store's registration details, revealing that the legal representative was Zhong Ting. He called his secretary and instructed, "Send me Zhong Tianlei's onboarding documents." About a minute later, Shin Yu-hong received the file sent by his secretary. Opening Zhong Tianlei's file, he looked at the family members section. Sure enough, Zhong Ting was Zhong Tianlei's sister. Every penny Mu-ru spent at this clothing store was actually transferring assets. Shin Yu-hong sat motionless in his office for hours before suppressing the urge to strangle Mu-ru that surged from the depths of his heart. After calming down, he printed out the paternity test report and spending records, placed them all in a document folder, then went downstairs and drove to the hospital. Mu-ru and Aunt Lee were standing by the baby's crib, watching the adorable sleeping infant. "The baby is so beautiful. The nose looks a bit like Mr. Shun." Shin Yu-hong stood outside the door and happened to hear Aunt Lee say this as he opened it. The emotions he had just calmed were instantly reignited. Shin Yu-hong forcefully pushed the door open and stormed inside angrily. "Aunt Lee, go back immediately. We don't need you here." Seeing his furious expression, Aunt Lee didn't dare to say anything. She could only give Mu-ru a look that said "you're on your own" before quickly walking out. "Honey, what's wrong? Who made you angry? Mu-ru stepped forward, reaching out to hold Shen Yuhong's arm, but he pushed her away abruptly. Shen Yuhong was in a fit of rage and completely unaware of his strength. Mu-ru's back slammed directly into the wall, the pain making her grimace as she collapsed onto the cold floor. Seeing Shen Yuhong treat her this way, a sense of foreboding surged in Mu-ru's heart. Mu-ru, you shameless woman, how dare you secretly see another man behind my back and use my money to support him? Husband, I really didn't do any of these things, Mu-ru said tearfully, her voice choked with sobs. It must be Shen Shuai and Shen Rui who fabricated all this false evidence to frame me. You have to believe me, at this point. You still want to deny it. Look, what are all these? Shen Yuhong felt not an ounce of pity for Mu-ru at this moment and directly threw a stack of papers at her face. The papers scattered all over the floor. Mu-ru picked up a few and read them, her face growing paler by the second. She never expected that Shen Yuhong had quietly arranged for a paternity test for the child. Even without looking at the paternity test results, Mu-ru knew very well that the child was definitely not Shen Yuhong's. If Shen Yuhong were capable, Mu-ru wouldn't have needed to seek help from someone else. Mu-ru was only in her 30s, and she refused to settle for a life that seemed predictable from the start. She wanted to have a child of her own. Of course, the most important reason was to secure a share of the Shen family's fortune. Mu-ru, you'll be discharged from the hospital tomorrow. Let's go get the divorce certificate, Shen Yuhong said coldly. As for dividing the assets, don't even think about it. Giving birth to another man's child during our marriage, letting you leave with nothing is already being lenient on you. Yuhong, you can't treat me like this. No matter what, I saved your life when the car accident happened before. Looking at Mu-ru's shameless expression, Shen Yuhong suddenly remembered how Old Man Yu had once scolded him for being blind and foolish. And wasn't that exactly what he was? Blind and foolish. Can't even see the true face of the person lying next to you, Shen Yuhong casually remarked. A car accident. Maybe that accident was deliberately orchestrated by you. His offhand comment unexpectedly hit the mark of truth. Back then, Mu-ru was merely Shen Yuhong's secretary. To get closer to him, she arranged for someone to stage a car accident. Mu-ru shielded Shen Yuhong with her own body, thus earning the gratitude of a life-saving favor. After that, everything fell into place, and she became his woman. To enter the Shen family, she did many more things, unknown to others. Having put in so much effort, how could Mu-ru possibly give up easily? Shen Yuhong, I will never agree to a divorce. Then we'll see each other in court, Shen Yuhong said before slamming the door and leaving. Chapter 75, Mu-ru's money. Gone. Oh my, Mrs. Shen. How did you end up on the floor? Where is your housekeeper? A nurse passing by the hallway noticed the door was ajar and caught sight of Mu-ru sitting on the floor, looking utterly devastated. She quickly stepped in to help Mu-ru up. I'm fine. Please help me to the bed. Being seen in such a sorry state made Mu-ru feel deeply embarrassed. The nurse thoughtfully poured Mu-ru a glass of warm water before stepping out and gently closing the door behind her. Mu-ru leaned back against the headboard, lost in thought for a long moment, then picked up her phone and dialed Zhong Tianlei's number. Hello, Tianlei, Shen Yuhong has already discovered your relationship with me. You need to leave the Shen family immediately, otherwise, I'm afraid he might harm you. Shen Yuhong didn't understand Mu-ru, but Mu-ru understood Shen Yuhong very well, otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to firmly capture his heart. Mu-ru knew Shen Yuhong's temperament. He wouldn't hit a woman, but a man might not be so lucky. After receiving Mu-ru's warning, Zhong Tianlei immediately left the Shen residence through the back door, hailed a taxi outside the villa district, and headed to the hospital to meet up with Mu-ru. Zhong Tianlei walked into the hospital room, and a look of joy appeared on his face when he saw Mu-ru. Rua, you've worked hard giving birth, Zhong Tianlei said as he walked to the baby's crib and looked at the sleeping infant. Oh, what an adorable little one. After seeing the baby, Zhong Tianlei sat down beside Mu-ru and asked, Rua, what's the situation now? What are your plans for the future? Mu-ru rolled her eyes inwardly. How could she have fallen for such a man, good-looking but useless, when it came to important matters? Did he never have his own ideas? What else can we do? The money I gave you earlier should be enough for the two of us to live comfortably. Hearing Mu-ru say this, Zhong Tianlei's expression changed, and he stammered, well, about that money, I used part of it to build a house back in my hometown. How much could building a house in the countryside cost? Where's the rest? Mu Ru's eyes fixed intently on Zhong Tianlei. Zhong Tianlei scratched his head and said, "When my younger brother got married, I lent him some money to buy an apartment in the city, and also, my dad took over 2 million to start a business." Mu Ru instantly felt darkness before her eyes, nearly fainting from anger at Zhong Tianlei. The money she gave Zhong Tianlei amounted to at least 10 million. This money was her last safety net, and Zhong Tianlei, without a word, just divided it among his family. "Tianlei, we agreed back then that this money was only temporarily kept with you. How much do you have left now?" "There's still about 2 or 3 million left, enough for us to buy a small 2-bedroom in Haicheng." Zhong Tianlei continued, "Rua, don't worry, I'll definitely find a good job to support you and the child." Mu Ru closed her eyes for a long while before finally opening them to look at Zhong Tianlei. "The money for your brother's house and your father's business, tell them to return it immediately, otherwise, there's no way we can go on like this." "What do you mean by that? Aren't my family your family too? When did you become so stingy and calculative?" Zhong Tianlei stood up, looking at Mu Ru with an incredulous expression. "Me, petty, me, calculative." Mu Ru was so angry she could almost spit blood, unable to resist shouting at him. "This was my money to begin with. When you lent it to your brother and your dad, did you even ask me once?" Zhong Tianlei, knowing he was in the wrong, lowered his head and muttered, "Rua, you're right, I should have discussed it with you beforehand." Mu Ru snorted coldly and said nothing. Zhong Tianlei continued, "Rua, you're still in your postpartum recovery period and your body hasn't fully healed. Please don't get angry, as it might harm your health. As for the money issue, I'll talk to my dad and my brother about it." Hearing Zhong Tianlei's stance, Mu Ru's anger subsided slightly. "Tianlei, first go find a postpartum care center. After I'm discharged from the hospital tomorrow, I'll go there for my postpartum recovery." "Rua, I'm worried the staff at the postpartum care center might not be attentive or responsible enough to take good care of you and the baby. How about having my mom come over to help instead?" Mu Ru glared at him. "You wouldn't even spare the money for postpartum care, would you?" She pointed toward the crib. "That's your son." After all, Zhong Tianlei, afraid Mu Ru might get angry again, had no choice but to agree. All right, don't worry, I was just talking offhand. If you want to stay at a postpartum center, I'll go book it for you right now." "Good, then hurry up and go." Mu Ru was a bit annoyed with him at the moment, so she waved her hand, urging him to leave quickly. Zhong Tianlei nodded and said, "Okay, I'll head out then. I'll come back later to check on you and bring you some good food." Mu Ru smiled and said, "At least you have some conscience," as Zhong Tianlei's figure disappeared through the door. Mu Ru gradually faded her smile and let out a long sigh. Everything now had slipped beyond Mu Ru's control. Mu Ru had never expected that Shen Rui and his sister would suddenly appear and hand over a pile of collected evidence to Shen Yuhong. What she never expected was that Zhong Tianlei had lent so much of her money to his family. Though it was called a loan, these days it's hard to get debts repaid, it's basically money gone for good. Mu Ru fell into anxiety about the future. Before marrying Shen Yuhong, she had endured enough hardship and never wanted to return to that penny-pinching life again. The next morning, Zhong Tianlei drove a Corolla to pick up Mu Ru from Dekang Hospital for her discharge. Dekang Hospital is a high-end private facility where the lowest-tier vehicles entering and exiting are Mercedes-Benz at minimum. A somewhat old and not-so-new Corolla parked in the hospital stood out conspicuously. Mu Ru, wearing a hat with the brim pulled low, held the child in her arms and bent down to get into the car. As soon as she got into the car, Mu Ru noticed an unpleasant smell. She quickly took out her perfume from her bag and sprayed it several times. Zhong Tianlei frowned and said with displeasure, "What are you doing, spraying perfume in an enclosed space? Don't you know it's bad for the child's respiratory system?" After spraying the perfume, Mu Ru immediately realized the issue and knew she had made a mistake. But hearing Zhong Tianlei's words, her anger flared up, and she retorted, "It's because your car is old, shabby, and stinks, otherwise, I wouldn't have sprayed perfume." Zhong Tianlei said to her, "If you agree, I'll go to the 4S dealership this afternoon and pick up a BMW." Mu Ru fell silent. They were already stretched thin financially. How could they possibly afford for Zhong Tianlei to change cars now? Half an hour later, Zhong Tianlei parked the car in the lot of a budget hotel. Mu-ru looked up through the car window and frowned. She turned to Zhong Tianlei and asked, "What are we doing here?" Zhong Tianlei got out of the car and walked around to the other side, opening the passenger door. "Let's get out. The postpartum care center is right upstairs in the hotel." Mu-ru froze, staring at him in disbelief. "This is the postpartum care center you found for me?" Zhong Tianlei nodded and replied, "Yes, this is the postpartum care center I found. I'm not going. This place is too shabby. How can anyone stay in a place like this?" "Rua, don't be willful. The money has already been paid. It just looks a bit shabby on the outside, but the interior is luxuriously decorated, and the environment is very comfortable." "Really, of course, when have I ever lied to you?" Though still somewhat doubtful, Mu-ru had no choice but to follow Zhong Tianlei upstairs. Chapter 76. I want to see you. Mu-ru, holding the child in her arms, followed Zhong Tianlei into the elevator. The walls of the elevator were plastered with many strange small advertisements. The lingering smell of smoke in the air made Mu-ru feel as if she couldn't breathe. It was absolutely disgusting. The elevator doors slowly opened, and Zhong Tianlei held the door with his hand, letting Mu-ru step out first while carrying the baby. As soon as they stepped out of the elevator, they were met with a narrow hallway, the dim light overhead casting a gloomy atmosphere. Although Mu-ru had already lowered her expectations before coming upstairs, she couldn't help but frown in distaste at the sight of the surroundings. There's no other way. Those high-end postpartum centers all require reservations in advance. Zhong Tianlei soothed her gently. "Rua, you'll just have to bear with it for now." Zhong Tianlei's words made sense, and Mu-ru couldn't find fault with them. Those high-quality postpartum care centers do require advance reservations. They entered a simply decorated reception area, where staff led them to their room and arranged a baby nurse for the child. The environment wasn't the best, but it had all the essentials, including daily nutritious meals and nourishing soups. Mu-ru, however, found it very hard to adjust. It's easy to go from frugality to luxury, but difficult to go from luxury back to frugality. After living the life of a wealthy lady for several years, she now had to make do with a small room of just 30 to 40 square meters. The psychological gap was anything but minor. After arranging for Mu-ru to stay at the postnatal care center, Zhong Tianlei didn't visit her and the child every day. The more Mu-ru thought about it, the more resentful she became. After scheming for so long, she had ended up with nothing. She couldn't accept this outcome. During this period, Shun Rui would report all of Shun Yuhong and Mu-ru's activities to Shun Shuwei. After learning about Mu-ru's recent situation, Shun Shuwei only said one thing: serves her right. Being content as Mrs. Shun wasn't enough for Mu-ru. She just had to push her luck in order to compete with the siblings for the inheritance. She secretly found a man and insisted on having a child. The ringing of the phone interrupted Shun Shuwei's thoughts. She picked up her phone, glanced at it, and pressed the answer button. Jiu Zhua called out in a low voice, "Shuwei." "Yes, what is it?" The two companies have recently initiated several new collaborative projects. It was working hours, and Shun Shuwei thought he was calling to discuss business matters. "Nothing special," his deep, magnetic voice said. "I miss you. I just wanted to hear your voice and see you." Shun Shuwei's cheeks grew slightly warm. Since Jiu Zhua had revealed his feelings, he had launched a direct pursuit of her. In addition to sending flowers every day, he also texts her good morning and good night, chatting with her daily on WeChat. Jiu Zhua's pursuit of Shun Shuwei has become common knowledge among the wealthy circles in Haicheng. Many women envy Shun Shuwei for receiving Jiu Zhua's deep affection. He continued on the phone, "Shuwei, I know a private kitchen that's recently introduced many new dishes. Shall we go try them together?" Shunsha smiled and replied, "Sure, no problem, send me the address. And I'll drive over after work. I can come pick you up." "That works too. See you in a bit then." After hanging up the phone, Shun Shuwei first finished up the work at hand. Before leaving work, she touched up her makeup and specifically applied an orange-red lipstick. After looking in the mirror for a while, Shun Shuwei used a makeup remover wipe to completely remove the lipstick. She was wearing a more professional blouse and pencil skirt today, and adding lipstick would make her appear too imposing. For the date, Shun Shuwei wanted to showcase her softer, more feminine side, so she let down her tied-up hair, allowing her long curls to cascade like a waterfall and fall loosely behind her. Shun Shuwei walked out of the office building and walked over 100 meters before getting into Jiu Ziyue's Bentley by the roadside. After all, her colleagues still didn't know she was the granddaughter of Old Master Yu. Suddenly being picked up by a Bentley after work would likely spark gossip. Seeing her cautious demeanor, Jiu Ziyue couldn't help but chuckle. Seems like I'll have to buy a more low-key car in the future. As she fastened her seatbelt, Shun Shuwei joked. The pickup truck your family uses for grocery shopping is pretty good. You should drive that from now on. Fine, if you dare to sit, I dare to drive. Forget it, forget it. Shun Shuwei quickly backed down. Let's just drive. I'm a bit hungry, as you wish. Jiu Ziyue smiled affectionately, turning the steering wheel to merge into the rush hour traffic. More than 20 minutes later, Jiu Ziyue parked the car, and the two got out and walked into a private kitchen restaurant. The decor of this private kitchen is very elegant, featuring a rustic wood and Chinese retro style. The courtyard is adorned with artificial mountains and a small bridge over flowing water, while the private dining room boasts a round floral patterned window. Outside the window lies a bamboo grove. With golden twilight casting on the bamboo leaves, a breeze passes by, causing the bamboo shadows to sway on the solid wood floor. After Shun Shuwei and Jiu Ziyue took their seats, the restaurant manager handed them the menu with a polite smile, saying, "Mr. Jiu, Miss Shun, please take a look at the menu." Jiu Ziyue said to the restaurant manager, "Please introduce some of your new dishes." The restaurant manager, having received the order, immediately began introducing their new dishes. After the restaurant manager finished his introduction, Jiu Ziyue looked at Shun Shuwei and said, "Shuwei, see what you'd like to eat." Shun Shuwei said, "I'd like to try the white-cut sunflower chicken, yellow croaker with fermented bean paste, silver needle stir-fried pine needle crab, and sour soup snowflake beef, and just one stir-fried green vegetable will be enough." The restaurant manager glanced at Jiu Ziyue, then said, "Please wait a moment, both of you," and walked out. Shun Shuwei poured the brewed pu'er tea into a teacup, the rising mist carrying the aged aroma of fermentation. "Thank you." Jiu Ziyue picked up the teacup, took a small sip of tea, and watched Shun Shuwei intently. The soft light of the setting sun cast delicate fragments onto her face, making her beautiful contours appear perfect and exquisite. She blinked, her long eyelashes trembling slightly, like a butterfly flapping its wings. "Is there something on my face?" Jiu Ziyue shook his head, smiling. "No, it's just that you're so beautiful. I can't bear to look away." Shun Shuwei's ears turned red, and she whispered, "Is your mouth coated with honey? You can taste it yourself and see if it's coated with honey." Jiu Ziyue's voice was low and lazy, his tone slightly rising at the end, carrying a hint of flirtation. Shun Shuwei turned her head away in embarrassment, gazing at the garden scenery outside the window, and murmured in a low voice, "You're so shameless." "Being shameless doesn't matter. What's important is winning my wife's heart," Jiu Ziyue said gently, his eyes reflecting her figure, in both his heart and his eyes. There was always only her. Chapter 77, A Comforting Embrace. In the private dining room, the table was set with 4 meat dishes and 1 vegetable dish, all visually appealing and aromatic, whetting one's appetite. Shun Shuwei picked up a piece of poached sunflower chicken and, after tasting it, nodded repeatedly. This sunflower chicken is really delicious. I heard it's raised in sunflower gardens." Jiu Ziyue gave a slight nod and replied, "That's correct. They're free-range in sunflower fields, feeding on sunflower heads and seeds, and drinking juice extracted from sunflower stalks. That's why the flavor is so unique. No wonder the chicken has such a distinct sweetness with a subtle aroma of sunflower seeds," she remarked. Jiu Ziyue peeled the legs of the snow crab and placed the crab meat in Shun Shuwei's bowl. "This snow crab is also quite good. Give it a try." Thank you." Shun Shuwei was pleasantly surprised, not expecting him to be so considerate as to peel crab legs for her. During the meal, Shun Shuwei spoke very little, as she was quietly and intently savoring the delicious food. Jiu Ziyue occasionally served her dishes, quietly noting her favorite foods. After the meal, the waiter brought another pot of tea. The two drank tea for a while before standing up and leaving the restaurant side by side. Once outside, Jiu Ziyue stopped and looked at Shun Shuwei with deep eyes, smiling as he asked, "It's still early. Would you like to take a walk along Riverside Road together?" Sure, a walk would help digest the food. Shen Shui patted her slightly full stomach and chuckled. You kept serving me dishes earlier, and I couldn't resist eating too much. You're too thin, eating a few more bites won't hurt. Jiu Ziyue and Shen Shui strolled along the riverside while chatting, admiring the dazzling night scenery. After walking for over half an hour, the two stopped and sat on a stone bench by the river, quietly watching the sightseeing boats pass by on the water. The cool river breeze blew toward them, and Jiu Ziyue's deep voice drifted into her ears with the wind. Shui, actually there's something I wanted to tell you tonight, but I don't know how to bring it up. Seeing him hesitate, Shen Shui was momentarily stunned, then smiled and said, just say whatever you want to say, what's so hard about it? I've heard about what's been happening in the Shen family recently, so I arranged for someone to investigate Muru. What did you find out? The Jiu family is the richest in Haicheng, with powerful connections, influence, and information channels. They can definitely dig up more. Jiu Ziyue turned his head and gave her a deep look. Besides the matters concerning Zhong Tianlei and the asset transfer, I also found some things that might be related to your mother. Upon hearing about her mother, Shen Shui frowned and quickly asked, what, related to my mother? The information I received is that Mu Ru, 9 years ago, went to the black market and purchased a batch of cultivated aflatoxin. Aflatoxin can cause chronic poisoning, damaging the liver and leading to fibrotic changes, as well as the proliferation of fibrous tissue. It is one of the most potent carcinogens in the world. Shen Shui immediately recalled the events of that year. Her mother had always been very health conscious, maintaining excellent daily routines and undergoing comprehensive medical checkups twice a year. Yet, by the time liver cancer was detected, it had already reached an advanced stage. Even after undergoing chemotherapy, she couldn't hold on for long and soon passed away. Shen Shui's eyes were slightly red as she asked in a low voice, could it be that Mu Ru poisoned my mother's food? Yes, but this is just my speculation. Jiu Ziyue sighed lightly. Unfortunately, it's been so many years, any evidence must have been erased by Mu Ru long ago, so there's nothing we can do. Shen Shui's voice trembled with a hint of sobs, her heart heavy with sorrow. The only option is to have that person come forward and testify that Mu Ru purchased those items. She might be sentenced to about 3 years. Since she's currently in the breastfeeding period, she won't be imprisoned until a year later. In a society governed by the rule of law, everything must be based on evidence. One cannot convict a person based solely on speculation. Shen Shui also knew that aflatoxin is a very common toxin. Spoiled legumes and nuts, for example, can produce large amounts of aflatoxin. Even if traces of aflatoxin were found in the Shen family, it still couldn't be concluded that it was maliciously planted by someone. Mu Ru's mind is too meticulous, and her heart is too malicious. The image of Yu Wenjun before her passing flashed through Shen Shui's mind, her appearance ravaged by illness, her hair falling out in clumps. Even so, Yu Wenjun had smiled gently and said, Wei Wei, don't worry, I'll keep fighting. I haven't seen you get married yet, haven't seen you have children. If I were to leave like this, I'd feel so regretful. Now Shen Shui had indeed married and had children. But Yu Wenjun was no longer in this world to see it. This was the regret Yu Wenjun had carried with her to the end. Thinking of these things, tears welled up in Shen Shui's eyes, swirling uncontrollably until they finally spilled over. Her eyes brimmed with sorrow, tears flowing silently down her cheeks. Jiu Ziyue saw the glistening tears on her face, and his heart ached. He quickly took out a tissue and gently wiped them away. Shui, Mom would want you to be happy, wherever she is. Jiu Ziyue said softly, patting her back reassuringly. I'll always be by your side from now on. Shen Shui sniffled and unexpectedly threw herself into Jiu Ziyue's embrace, wrapping her arms around his waist. Without hesitation, Jiu Ziyue lifted his hands and held her in his warm embrace, breathing in his unique woody fragrance under the moonlight. As he sat beside her, his warm arms felt like a safe harbor, shielding her from the storms. It filled her with an overwhelming sense of security and made her heart flutter even more. They had no idea how long they embraced, as numerous passers-by cast envious glances their way. After a while, Shen Shui's emotions settled, and she gently pushed Jiu Ziyue's arm, stepping out of his embrace. Feeling slightly embarrassed about her earlier tears, she smiled and said, Sorry for borrowing your embrace. Jiuzhua reached up to stroke her hair, his eyes filled with tenderness, and replied in a deep voice, "It's all right, my embrace will always be yours." Half an hour later, Jiuzhua drove Shen Shui home. The car entered the villa's gate and stopped in front of the main building. "Shui, don't dwell on those troubles anymore, take a hot bath and rest early," Jiuzhua said with concern. "Millimeter, got it, I'll head in now." Shen Shui reached out to press the door-opening button, her eyes gleaming as if she had made some kind of decision. She suddenly turned around, leaned close to Jiuzhua, and quickly kissed him on the cheek. Shen Shui's kiss on his cheek was as light as a dragonfly touching the water, yet it stirred up a tumultuous storm in Jiuzhua's heart. Before Jiuzhua could react, Shen Shui had already opened the car door and gotten out. Quickly walking into the main building of the villa, Jiuzhua's Adam's apple bobbed slightly as he watched Shen Shui's retreating figure, an indescribable excitement sweeping through his heart. This was the first time she had ever initiated a kiss with him. Chapter 78. Throwing caution to the wind, Shen Shui hummed a tune as she walked briskly up the spiral staircase. As she opened her room door, ready to step inside, she heard the sound of a door opening behind her. "Bro, you're home today." Shen Shui turned around and greeted Shen Rui. It immediately occurred to her that Shen Rui had been very proactive lately, coming over whenever he had free time. Moreover, he specifically chose to return home during the times when Ningguani was in class. Before Shen Shui could say anything, Shen Rui smiled and said, "I saw everything from the balcony just now." Shen Shui asked nervously, "What did you see?" "I saw you and Jiuzhua downstairs, reluctant to part. The car stopped for so long before you finally got out." Shen Shui breathed a sigh of relief. She had thought Shen Rui saw her kissing Jiuzhua. "We just talked a bit longer, that's all." Shen Shui shifted the topic to him. "Brother, aren't you busy with work lately? You used to come back only once a week, but now you're almost here every day." Shen Rui gave an unnatural smile and said, "Only you can be filial, and I can't. Of course, I want to come back more often to spend time with Grandpa. And by the way, play with my nephew and niece." Shen Shui knew it was for Ningguani, but she didn't pry further. Fate sometimes arrives unexpectedly. Whether Shen Rui and Ningguani are destined, no one can say for sure. "Brother, Jiuzhua told me some things tonight, about Muru and Mom." Shen Rui reined in his smile and softly said, "Let's go sit on the terrace and chat for a bit." The siblings sat down on the casual sofa on the terrace. Shen Rui lit a cigarette, took 2 puffs, and slowly exhaled the swirling smoke. "Tell me, what's going on? What's Muru's connection to our mom?" Shen Shui spoke unhurriedly, telling Shen Rui everything Jiuzhua had found out. After listening to Shen Shui's words, Shen Rui remained silent for a long while. His eyes filled with sorrow, he took a deep breath and gritted his teeth, saying, "Muru was perfectly fine. Why would she go and buy such a deadly poison, considering what happened back then? It's highly likely that she was the one who caused Mom's illness." Shen Shui had a question she couldn't figure out. "Brother, Muru was just Dad's secretary at the time. How could she have had access to Mom's food? In the years before Yu Wenjun fell ill, Shen Shui was still in college, living on campus and only coming home on weekends." Shen Rui closed his eyes for a moment and said in a low voice, "At the time, Muru mentioned that her cousin worked at a well-known health supplement company. Muru gave Mom a lot of vitamins and calcium tablets. I suspect it was these items that caused the problem." Shen Shui recalled that Yu Wenjun had indeed taken vitamins and calcium tablets regularly, which were just very common health supplements. Little did they know, these very supplements became Yu Wenjun's death sentence. Shen Shui let out a deep sigh and said, "But after all these years, we can't find any evidence now." Shen Rui clenched his fist and slammed it hard against the marble railing, seething with anger as he said, "Even so, we can't let Muru off easy." Shen Shui nodded lightly. With the Jiyu family, the Shen family, and the Yu family joining forces, Muru can start preparing to beg on the streets. "Yes, it's about time for Shen Yuhong to step down," Shen Rui remarked, his gaze turning icy. He had endured long enough, even if Shen Yuhong was unaware of Muru's actions. In the hearts of Shen Rui and Shen Shui, their resentment toward him had deepened another layer. Shen Shui stood up, patted Shen Rui's shoulder, and said softly, "Brother, it's very late now. You should get some rest." "All right, I'll go back to my room in a bit." Seeing Shunrui open the cigarette case again and take out a cigarette, Shin Shuei knew he was troubled and didn't say much more, turning to walk back to her room. Half a month after Mu-ru was discharged from the hospital, she finally came up with a good way to deal with Shin Yu-hong. She posted online accusing Shin Yu-hong of abandoning his wife and children, leaving her and the child in the hospital, and ignoring her. In short, she completely portrayed herself as a victim, describing herself as miserable as possible in the article. Mu-ru used to work as an office clerk, so writing an emotionally stirring article was no effort for her at all. After posting the message, Mu-ru spent a significant amount of money to purchase a traffic package specifically to ensure more people would see it. In less than a day, the post had already sparked heated discussions online. Married women, in particular, expressed deep sympathy for Mu-ru's plight, relating to her situation personally. They collectively condemned Shin Yu-hong online and even began boycotting products from Hongyu Group. Hongyu Group was founded by Shin Yu-hong, and its main products are daily necessities, such as shampoo and hair care products, shower gel, and laundry detergent. Housewives all said they would boycott the products, and distributors across the country couldn't sit still either, calling the group's business department demanding an explanation. After this incident, Shin Yu-hong immediately felt a headache. Mu-ru was truly too troublesome. To get a share of the Shin family's assets, Mu-ru refused to divorce him, and even more so, refused to leave empty-handed. Mu-ru was gambling that Shin Yu-hong wouldn't dare to reveal the truth to the public, otherwise, Shin Yu-hong would never be able to hold his head high in the entire wealthy circle again. No matter where he went, people would point fingers and say, "Hey, that's Shin Yu-hong. I heard his wife cheated on him and even had a bastard child." Mu-ru didn't care anymore. She had nothing left to lose. What is reputation worth? How much does reputation cost? As long as she could get another sum of money from Shin Yu-hong, life for her and the child would be easier in the future. Shin Yu-hong was restless. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the gloomy sky outside. Just like his mood at this moment, a knock sounded at the office door. "Come in," Shin Yu-hong said as he turned and walked back to his desk to sit down. Shunrui pushed the door open and walked straight to stand opposite Shin Yu-hong. "Ruya, have a seat," Shin Yu-hong said, treating Shunrui with much more kindness than before. However, Shunrui no longer cared. After taking his seat, Shunrui got straight to the point, saying, "Dad, I saw the posts online. How do you plan to resolve this?" "I don't know. I haven't thought about it yet." Shin Yu-hong shook his head. "Do you have any good suggestions?" Shunrui said, "Issue a direct clarification statement, telling everyone that Mu-ru was the one at fault in the marriage." Shin Yu-hong was a little displeased. "Doesn't that mean everyone will know I've been cuckolded?" Shunrui raised an eyebrow and asked, "So what do you plan to do? Pay Mu-ru to shut her up? Pay Mu-ru to delete the post?" "No, of course not. Mu-ru is an insatiable woman. If she gets one, she'll want two. Greed is a bottomless pit. Besides, as for the consumers, if you don't give a clear explanation, you'll still have to bear the title of abandoning your wife and children." Shunrui analyzed everything with clear logic. "You're right. If the reputation isn't turned around and consumers continue to boycott, it will affect the company's product sales," Shin Yu-hong said, looking at Shunrui, suddenly feeling a pang of guilt toward him. Perhaps it was time for him to admit he was getting old. Shunrui excelled in every aspect and had long been capable of handling things independently. Chapter 79, Shunrui begins taking over the company. "Ruya, then as you said, I'll arrange for the public relations department and the legal team to issue a statement. We'll explain the whole story clearly to the public." Shunrui nodded, responding faintly, Shin Yu-hong looked up at Shunrui, speaking solemnly. "Ruya, Hongyu Group was founded by me. After so many years of hard work and struggle, I've finally built up a family fortune for you two siblings." A hint of sarcasm flashed in Shunrui's eyes. He wondered who it was that was always wary of him, and even planned to leave the family fortune to his newborn youngest son. He knew very well that if Mu-ru hadn't betrayed him, Shin Yu-hong would never have repented. In the end, Shin Yu-hong's repentance was nothing more than self-interest. Shin Yu-hong continued, "Ruya, you are now capable of handling things on your own. I'm getting old, and I plan to hand over the company to you. This afternoon, I'll issue a notice to announce this to everyone. No problem, I'll manage the company well." And you can rest assured and enjoy your retirement at home. I'm going out to work now." With that, Shunrui stood up and walked out of the office. Shunrui had finally waited for this day, yet he didn't feel as happy as he had imagined, because in Shin Yu-hong's heart, he wasn't the first choice. Shin Yu-hong's original plan was to wait 20 years if necessary, just to leave the company to his younger son, in the afternoon. All employees of Hongyu Group received an email announcing Shunrui's promotion. Regarding Shunrui's identity, neither Shin Yu-hong nor Shunrui deliberately concealed it, and most of the senior employees were aware of it. However, after working in the business department for several years without any transfer arrangements from Shin Yu-hong, everyone assumed that Shin Yu-hong had no plans to retire too soon. But today, they suddenly received a promotion notice. And it was a direct leap to the position of vice president. It was clear that Shin Yu-hong was preparing Shunrui to take over. Shunrui will soon become the decision-maker of Hongyu Group. Realizing this, the employees all smiled and showed goodwill toward him. Following Shin Yu-hong's instructions, the public relations department and the legal team sat in the conference room. After discussions, they drafted a statement, which was published on the official account at 3 p.m. The statement primarily informed everyone that Mu-ru was the one at fault. She had given birth to another man's child during her marriage. Additionally, the matter of her secretly transferring assets was already being addressed through legal channels. Along with the written statement, some evidence was also attached to prove that Mu-ru was indeed in the wrong and that Shin Yu-hong was entirely innocent. No man could possibly remain unaffected after being cheated on. After this statement was released, netizens finally realized they had been fooled by this woman. Mu-ru, how shameless. How dare she pull such a stunt and then play the victim? Outraged, netizens flooded Mu-ru's post with comments, calling her shameless and a scheming green tea bitch. Seeing the screen full of insults directed at her, Mu-ru gritted her teeth. But there was nothing she could do. She could only silently delete all the posts she had previously made. Her previous posts had already been reposted by many people. Even though Mu-ru deleted them, many people still sent her private messages to curse at her. How could this happen? Mu-ru was consumed by rage and slammed her phone onto the floor. Zhong Tianlei came in holding the child, saw the phone thrown on the floor, and paused, asking, "What happened?" Shin Yu-hong issued a clarification statement. Mu-ru grumbled. He's always been very concerned about his reputation. How come he's unwilling to settle privately this time? Zhong Tianlei placed the child in the crib, then took out his phone and glanced at the statement released by Hongyu Group. After reading it, Zhong Tianlei sighed deeply. "Rua, can we stop this? From now on, our family of 3 will live our own lives." "Who am I doing this for?" Mu-ru twitched her lips and snorted. "Live our own lives? Do you think we can even live this life?" At the maternity center for over half a month, Mu-ru had to take care of the baby, didn't get enough rest, and neglected her skincare routine. Now the whole person looks as if they've aged 10 years compared to before. Zhong Tianlei grew increasingly impatient with Mu-ru. He turned his back to her and said coldly, "Hey, that's not what you said when you begged me to give you a child." Hearing Zhong Tianlei's words, Mu-ru couldn't help but burst into tears. At that time, she had only wanted a child of her own. A single wrong thought destroyed the wealth and luxury of her later years. Mu-ru was now filled with deep regret. Half a month later, Mu-ru finished her postpartum confinement period. She and Zhong Tianlei left the maternity center with their baby and returned to Zhong Tianlei's rented apartment. Zhong Tianlei had been living alone before, so the apartment he rented had 1 bedroom and 1 living room, covering an area of about 50 square meters, even while staying at the maternity center. Mu-ru had already felt extremely uncomfortable. Returning to the rented apartment with Zhong Tianlei, Mu-ru found it even harder to adjust. Every day, she had to take care of the child herself, feeding, changing diapers, soothing the baby, and even doing laundry and cooking. Mu-ru sat on the sofa holding the baby while breastfeeding. She looked at Zhong Tianlei and asked, "You mentioned before that you planned to buy a house. When can we actually do it? We've already started looking." Zhong Tianlei said, showing his phone to Mu-ru, "Take a look and see which one you like. If we buy an unfinished property, it might take 1 or 2 years from renovation to moving in, but if we buy a second-hand home, we can move in right after purchasing some new furniture and appliances." Their heads leaned close together as they discussed which house would be the best choice within their budget, since things had come to this. Mu-ru had no choice but to accept her fate and decided to settle down and live a proper life with Zhong Tianlei. However, the next morning, Zhong Tianlei received a notification from the bank. His bank card had been frozen. The reason was that all that money had been assets transferred by Mu-ru. Shen Yuhong had taken legal action, applying to the court to freeze the bank accounts of both Mu-ru and Zhong Tianlei once the court's judgment was issued. The money would be transferred back to Shen Yuhong's account. Upon hearing Zhong Tianlei's voice, Mu-ru quickly emerged from the kitchen, her hands slightly damp, which she casually wiped on her clothes. She took Zhong Tianlei's phone and saw the message from the bank. It felt like a bolt from the blue. Mu-ru had already resigned herself to fate, planning to use the remaining 2 or 3 million to buy a small apartment and live a peaceful life with Zhong Tianlei. But if Shen Yuhong were to demand the money back, Mu-ru truly felt she couldn't go on living, not to mention being unable to buy a house. Any money she earns from work in the future will automatically be transferred to Shen Yuhong's account until this debt is fully repaid. Neither her nor Zhong Tianlei's accounts will have any personal savings. "Rua, are you okay?" Zhong Tianlei noticed Mu-ru's pale face and quickly helped her sit down. "I'm fine. Today is your first day at work. You should head out now." Mu-ru's voice sounded weak and listless. Zhong Tianlei stood up and walked to the door. While bending down to put on his shoes, he said to Mu-ru, "Don't worry about this for now. Let's talk about it when I get back." Mu-ru nodded. "Millimeter, I understand. Go to work without worries." After Zhong Tianlei left for work, Mu-ru changed her clothes. She had originally wanted to put on some makeup, but she didn't even have any cosmetics now. Mu-ru stuffed 200 yuan into her pocket, picked up the child, and left the house. She hailed a taxi and headed to the villa district where the Shen family lived. Chapter 80. Mu-ru completely breaks down. Around 9 a.m., Donghu Yashu Villa, a yellow taxi stopped at the entrance of the Shen family villa. Mu-ru paid the fare, pushed the car door open, and got out holding her child. Mu-ru had lived in this villa community for several years, so even when returning by taxi, the security guard at the main entrance still recognized her. The security guard only found Mu-ru familiar, knowing she lived here, and let her pass directly. As for which homeowner was going through a divorce with his wife, the security guard had no idea. Mu-ru stood at the entrance of the Shen family villa. Lost in thought for a moment, this luxurious villa before her had once been her home, though it had only been a little over a month since she last returned. She felt as if a lifetime had passed. The little baby woke up at this moment, reaching out to grab Mu-ru's clothes. Only then did Mu-ru snap out of her daze. Taking a few steps forward to ring the doorbell, she stood waiting for several minutes, but no one came to open the door. So Mu-ru pressed the bell over a dozen more times in succession. If no one came out, she would keep pressing it. Soon after, the voice of the butler came through the intercom of the doorbell. "Ms. Mu, please go back, Mr. Shen is not at home." Mu-ru shouted loudly into the intercom. "It's the weekend today. I know he must be home. Please let me in to see him." The butler replied, "Mr. Shen has gone out on business and is indeed not at home. Please leave." But Mu-ru wasn't the type to give up easily. She raised her voice and shouted loudly, Yu Hong, I know you're home. Let me in to see you. Yu Hong, let me in. I have something to say to you." "Shen Yu Hong, are you even a man? Stop hiding like a coward and come out to say something." Mu-ru's shouts grew increasingly frantic and louder, to the point where even the baby in her arms started crying from fright. Yet, as if possessed, she continued to scream uncontrollably, "Shen Yuhong, open the door." Shen Yuhong was indeed at home at the moment, but he didn't want to see Mu-ru. There was nothing left for them to say. Hiding behind the curtains, he peered through the gaps. The sight of Mu-ru's frenzied state met his eyes. After more than a month apart, Shen Yuhong could barely recognize her. Was this hysterical shrew really the same gentle and demure Mu-ru from before? The baby in her arms kept crying. But Mu-ru seemed oblivious as she continued shouting for Shen Yuhong to open the door. The Shen family villa wasn't particularly large, and neighbors living in the nearby villas. Hearing Mu-ru's high-profile commotion, all stepped into their own gardens, craning their necks to listen to the ruckus at the Shen residence. The household across the street even brought out snacks and tea, sitting in their garden to enjoy the show while sipping tea. Neighbor, folks, first row seats to the drama, who can relate? After shouting continuously for over 10 minutes, Mu-ru's throat was parched. Yet no one paid her any attention. Yu Hong-shin, if you don't like this child, I can give him to someone else to raise. Let's go back to how we were before. Okay, you're the only one in my heart. Please, open the door and let me come home. When Yu Hong-shin heard Mu-ru say come home, he couldn't help but laugh. Home? Who does she think she is, after doing those things? How dare you still talk about returning to the Shin family? Shin Yu-hong couldn't stand Mu-ru's shamelessness and instructed the butler beside him, call the property security to come and kick her out. The Shin family also had 2 security guards, but it wasn't appropriate for them to intervene. If Mu-ru got hurt, she might extort money from them later. Since the person was let in by the villa property management, naturally, they should be the ones to handle it, soon. For property security guards arrived at the door, politely urging Mu-ru to leave. Mu-ru wouldn't listen at all. Instead, she scolded them. Who do you think you are? You're just gatekeepers. I'm a resident here. How dare you try to kick me out? The guards' expressions darkened. I know you used to live here, but the property deed isn't in your name. You don't qualify as a resident, one of them said. The security guards working there had seen plenty of women abandoned by wealthy families. But someone as unhinged as Mu-ru, that was a first for them. Whether I'm the property manager is none of your damn business. I'm not leaving. Let's see what you can do about it. Mu-ru ignored the security guards and turned around to continue calling out to Shin Yu-hong. Seeing that even the security guards couldn't handle Mu-ru, Shin Yu-hong felt a massive headache coming on. Having known Mu-ru for 10 years, it was only recently that he truly saw her for who she was. To think it could be hidden so deep. Shin Yu-hong, if you don't open the door now, I'll throw the child into your fish pond. Seeing that Shin Yu-hong still wouldn't come out, Mu-ru decided to threaten him. Hearing Mu-ru's shout, Shin Yu-hong felt a chill run down his spine, thinking how terrifying this woman was. Whether it's a threat or intimidation, how could a mother have such a terrifying thought? The butler was also shocked and asked, Mr. Shin, this, Shin Yu-hong said with a serious expression, call the police. We can't let her continue like this. The butler immediately picked up the phone to call the police, urging them to come and handle the situation as soon as possible. The nearest police station is only a 5-minute drive from the villa area, so the police arrived quickly. Within 10 minutes, a police car was parked at the Shin family's gate. The butler went out and spoke a few words to the police. The 2 officers then forcibly escorted Mu-ru into the car and drove her to the police station, after Mu-ru was taken away by the police. Shin Yu-hong immediately called his lawyer to begin preparing an application for a restraining order to prohibit Mu-ru from appearing at the Shin family villa, and the company, Zhong Tianlei, who was at work, received a call from the police station and immediately took leave to rush over. After hearing the police recount the whole story, Zhong Tianlei widened his eyes, hardly able to believe his ears. Mu-ru said she wanted to throw her baby, who was just over a month old, into the water. Is she out of her mind? Since Mu-ru was still in the postpartum period, Zhong Tianlei had no trouble completing the bail procedures for her. However, the police still cautioned Zhong Tianlei, your wife has mental issues, you need to be more careful and not let her out, going to people's doorsteps and spouting nonsense. Got it, got it. Zhong Tianlei responded repeatedly. After bringing Mu-ru home, Zhong Tianlei immediately called his hometown and asked his mother to come to Haicheng to take the child back to their hometown to raise. Despite Mu-ru repeatedly admitting her mistake, saying she was just momentarily angry and wouldn't actually harm the child, but Zhong Tianlei didn't dare take that risk, so he had his mother take the child back to their hometown, planning to feed the baby with formula milk from then on. This is the child I carried for 10 months. How could I possibly harm him? No, don't take my child away. Mu-ru cried her heart out, but she couldn't stop the Zhong family from taking the child away. Chapter 81, Accepting an Interview. During this period, Shun Rui smoothly took over Hongyu Group, while Shin Yu-hong was pursuing legal channels to file for divorce. After the child was taken away by the Zhong family, Mu-ru spent her days crying and making scenes at home, turning her life with Zhong Tianlei into a complete mess. The Shun family's affairs had finally come to an end. The 30th anniversary of Heir jewelry is approaching, and Shen Shuwei has been very busy with work lately. Seizing this opportunity, Shen Shuwei plans to launch a series of jewelry pieces she personally designed. Shen Shuwei's designs have been featured in fashion magazines both domestically and internationally. At some high-end fashion galas, it's not uncommon to see socialites and wealthy ladies wearing jewelry designed by her. Vivi Shen is a renowned jewelry designer who has never shown her face to the public, with most people only having seen her work. Even fewer know that Shen Shuwei is Vivi Shen. Recently, Shen Shuwei started posting updates using the Vivi Shen account. Vivi Shen. Hello Tilda. After being quiet for a while. Is everyone doing well? I've been back in the country for some time now, and today I want to share some good news with you all. I will soon be collaborating with a certain brand to launch the Starry Sea jewelry collection. She didn't directly mention the brand name. This was Shen Shuwei's deliberate choice to encourage more people to join the discussion and amplify the topic's buzz. Meow Meow dried fish. Her. Vivi Shen is an independent designer who's always only taken private commissions. Now she's finally collaborating with a brand. So happy Tilda. Yo, let's go. I love Sister Vivi's designs so much. I'll definitely buy the jewelry as soon as it launches. Runaway heiress. If I start saving money now, will I still make it in time? Beyond the mountains. I'm getting engaged at the end of this month. If I can buy a ring designed by Vivi, I'll be so happy I might faint. There were many comments. And Shen Shuwei selected a few with high likes to interact with netizens. Especially for the person who mentioned preparing for an engagement, Shen Shuwei sent her a private message directly, congratulating her on the engagement and informing her of the specific release date. A few more days passed, and the topic's popularity had fermented quite sufficiently. Vivi Shen and the official Heir jewelry simultaneously announced. The Starry Sea jewelry series designed by Vivi Shen will be launched on the anniversary celebration day, on August 8th. The day of Heir Jewelry's anniversary celebration. Long queues had already formed outside many stores even before business hours began. Whether one could afford it or not, going to admire Vivi Shen's design work was still a worthwhile experience. Shen Shuwei and the senior executives remained at the company, closely monitoring the situation at the stores. Seeing the encouraging sales report, everyone broke into satisfied smiles. No need to worry about this quarter's KPI anymore. In the meeting room, Jiang Lu's phone vibrated several times. After she declined the call, the person kept calling back. Noticing this, Shen Shuwei whispered to Jiang Lu, "It's all right, go ahead and take the call." Jiang Lu nodded, picked up her phone, stood up, and walked out of the meeting room before finally answering the call. A few minutes later, Jiang Lu opened the door and walked in. After sitting down next to Shen Shuwei, she whispered in her ear, "Wants to interview you. Should we accept their request?" Is a comprehensive fashion and lifestyle magazine that publishes cutting-edge trends, unique seasonal styles, and high-quality design aesthetics. Shen Shuwei thought for a moment, then nodded lightly and said, "Sure, arrange the meeting for 4 p.m. this afternoon." Got it. Jiang Lu stood up and walked out to return the call to the other party. At 4 p.m., the magazine reporter arrived at the company on time, and Jiang Lu escorted her to the reception room to wait for a moment. Upon hearing that the reporter had arrived, Shen Shuwei immediately went to the reception room. Ready for the magazine's personal interview, a woman dressed in professional attire was sitting in the reception room. When she saw Shen Shuwei enter, she quickly stood up. "Hello, Ms. Shen. I'm Zheng Yang from the most fashionable magazine." "Hello, Zheng Yang. I've read a few of your articles. They're well written and insightful." Shen Shuwei gestured with her hand. "Please, have a seat, let's talk." Zheng Yang smiled and said, "It's truly an honor to receive your praise." After they took their seats, Zheng Yang took out a notebook and a voice recorder, looking at Shen Shuwei as she said, "Miss Shen, we'll begin shortly. If any questions are uncomfortable to answer, feel free to skip them." Shen Shuwei nodded. "All right, I understand." Zheng Yang pressed the record button and asked, "Miss Shen, I heard you were studying abroad a few years ago. May I ask which school you attended?" Shen Shuwei replied, "I pursued further studies at the Sheffield Hallam University's College of Art and Design. There are many domestic jewelry brands. Could you talk about why you chose to collaborate with Heir Jewelry?" "Of course," Shen Shuwei said slowly. The reason I chose to collaborate with Heir Jewelry is, on one hand, because I highly resonate with their brand philosophy. On the other hand, it's for personal reasons. My late mother was very fond of Heir Jewelry. Since this was an interview conducted in her capacity as a designer, Shen Shuai did not mention that she is the heir to Heir Jewelry. I see. Zheng Yang nodded and continued asking, so what are your future plans? Do you intend to keep collaborating with Heir Jewelry? Or will you establish your own independent studio? I'll probably continue working with Heir Jewelry. Zheng Yang started with some simple questions to establish a basic understanding before delving into more in-depth inquiries about the jewelry industry. Shen Shuai spoke eloquently, sharing many of her thoughts with Zheng Yang, her design philosophy for jewelry and some of her perspectives on the jewelry industry. The interview lasted for over an hour. Zheng Yang slightly bowed and thanked Shen Shuai, saying, "Thank you for sharing, Miss Shen. Many of your insights have been truly enlightening for me." "You're welcome," Shen Shuai replied with a smile. "I really enjoyed our conversation. I'll send you the interview draft as soon as possible. We'll only publish it after you've approved it," Zheng Yang said. "I should head back to the magazine office now." They opened the door and walked out, where Jiang Lu quickly came over to escort Zheng Yang downstairs. After finishing the interview, Shen Shuai returned to the office and worked for a while. In the evening, Shen Shuai drove home to find Shen Ruochen and Shen Ruoshi playing with a ball on the lawn. Seeing Shen Shuai return, the two little ones immediately ran over, happily calling out "Mommy." She played with the children for a while before Shen Rui also arrived home. Shen Rui kept looking around, wondering why he couldn't see Ningguani's figure. He walked up to Shen Ruochen and asked, "Chen Chen, isn't today your violin lesson day? Don't you need to practice the violin?" Shen Shuai barely suppressed a laugh. Although Shen Rui's words sounded like concern for his little nephew, he was actually trying to ask why Ningguani hadn't come to teach him. Shen Ruochen looked up at Shen Rui and replied, "Uncle, Teacher Ning said she wasn't feeling well today, so she rescheduled the lesson for tomorrow." "Oh, I see." A trace of concern flashed in Shen Rui's eyes. Was Ningguani sick? Chapter 82. Heart-wrenching pain. Shen Shuai took the children to the study, while Shen Rui turned and walked into the pavilion by the lotus pond. After sitting down on the stone bench, he stared blankly at the blooming lotus flowers for a while. The glow of the setting sun shone on the pink-white petals, as if veiled in a thin gauze, creating a unique kind of beauty. After sitting alone for a while, Shen Rui took out his phone from his pocket and found Ningguani's number. He stared at the phone screen, hesitated for a moment, but still dialed the number. After about 10 seconds of ringing, the call was answered on the other end. "Hello." Perhaps Ningguani hadn't saved his number, as her voice carried not just exhaustion but also a hint of confusion. "Hello, Teacher Ning, I'm Shen Ruochen's uncle." Ningguani responded nervously. "Mr. Shen, is there something you need to discuss with me? You didn't come for Chunchen's violin lesson today. Were you delayed on the way?" Shen Rui was asking a question he already knew the answer to. I already told Shuai that I'm not feeling well today, so the class is rescheduled for tomorrow. She hasn't come home yet, so I don't know and decided to call you." Shen Rui took the opportunity to ask with concern, "What's bothering you? Have you taken any medicine?" Ningguani, menstrual cramps. How should I explain this to him? After a moment of hesitation, she replied, "It's nothing serious, just a bit of a stomachache. I've already taken medicine. Are you feeling any better now?" "Feeling better now." Shen Rui looked up at the sunset on the horizon and said gently, "Then get some good rest. If you need any help, you can always tell me." "Thank you, Mr. Shen. I won't disturb you any longer. See you tomorrow." Ningguani replied softly, "Okay, see you tomorrow." After hanging up the phone, Ningguani pressed her slightly cool palms against both cheeks to cool them down. Phew. She took a deep breath and murmured to herself, "Why do I always blush and my heart race uncontrollably whenever I talk to Shen Rui? Was he just concerned about me? No. He was just asking why I didn't go to teach Chen Chen." Ningguani threw her phone aside, hugged a small bare pillow, and talked to herself. Although Shen Rui only casually showed a few words of concern, Ningguani still felt a wave of warmth in her heart. "You family villa." 2 cars drove through the gate. One was a black Bentley, Jiu Zui's car. The other was a blue Maserati, Sheng Huinan's car. Sheng Huinan had just returned to Haicheng this morning. After spending some time with his parents at home, he couldn't resist bringing gifts to the Yu family. Although Shen Shuwei had rejected him, she was all he could think about every single day while he was abroad. Both cars parked simultaneously, and the two of them stepped out at the same time, exchanging a glance across the distance. The air seemed to crackle with an invisible tension. A moment later, they both opened their trunks and retrieved the gifts they had brought. The difference was that Jiyu Ziyue, in addition to the gifts, also carried a bouquet of red roses. Sheng Huinan glanced over without showing any expression, feeling a faint ache in his heart. During the time he was away, had Jiyu Ziyue and Shi Wei already gotten back together? Sheng Huinan and Jiyu Ziyue walked into the main villa building together. Shun Rui had just sat down in the living room when he saw the two of them enter simultaneously. With a smile, he asked, "Did you two plan to come together?" Jiyu Ziyue curled his lips slightly and said, "No, I just happened to run into him." Sheng Huinan frowned slightly. "No, I'm not familiar with him." They were rivals in love, both pining for Shen Shuwei in their hearts, so naturally, they couldn't stand each other. Shen Shuwei and the two children were still in the study, where she was helping them practice their handwriting. Grandpa Yu was sitting on the living room sofa watching TV. Jiyu Ziyue and Sheng Huinan quickly walked over to greet him and presented the gifts they had prepared for the old man. Grandpa Yu chuckled and said, "Ziyue, Huinan, you're so thoughtful. But I already have more health supplements than I can finish. You don't need to buy them for me next time." This was absolutely true, since being discharged from the hospital, the younger generation had bought him plenty of health supplements. His friends had also sent many, and his business partners had gifted even more. "The storage room is almost full, and there's so much that we can't finish it all. What if it expires and goes to waste, Grandpa?" "What I'm giving you isn't health supplements," Jiyu Ziyue said as he opened the gift box he had brought and presented it to Grandpa Yu. "Oh, what a rare treasure," Grandpa Yu exclaimed. Taking out a magnifying glass and carefully examining the vase from the gift box, he then looked at Jiyu Ziyue and asked, "From the Qianlong period?" Jiyu Ziyue nodded with a smile. "Yes, I had someone bid for it in Hong Kong a while back." "You've put thought into this." Old man Yu held the vase for a while longer before carefully placing it back into the gift box. "This is a Qianlong-era Jun-glazed lantern vase, and it's remarkably well preserved." The way old man Yu handled it with such care showed just how much he cherished this antique vase. Sheng Huinan thought to himself, "Jiyu Ziyue really knows how to cater to someone's tastes. What a schemer." Aside from the health supplements, he had also gifted old man Yu a set of antique silver cutlery. Speaking of which, it could be considered a match for Jiyu Ziyue, but clearly, old master Yu preferred the antique vase gifted by Jiyu Ziyue. Shen Shuwei brought Chen Chen and 1111 downstairs, and the two children were overjoyed when they saw Sheng Huinan. However, they still called out "Daddy" first before greeting Uncle Sheng. Sheng Huinan couldn't help but recall how, just a few months ago, the two little ones had been much closer to him. Now, they had already started calling Jiyu Ziyue Daddy. "Chen, 1111, long time no see. Have you missed Uncle Sheng?" Seeing the two little ones nod obediently, Sheng Huinan finally felt a bit better and immediately took out the gifts. Sheng Huinan had bought many things for Chen Chen and 1111, all carefully selected clothes and toys from abroad. After politely thanking him, Chen Chen and 1111 took the toys and went to play on their own. During dinner, old man Yu sat at the head of the table, with Jiyu Ziyue on his left and Sheng Huinan on his right. Shun Rui stood to the side with his arms crossed, wearing an expression that suggested he was eager to stir up trouble. He waited for Shen Shuwei to take her seat first. He was also curious about whom Shen Shuwei would choose to sit with. Without hesitation, Shen Shuwei took Chen Chen and 1111 by the hand and sat down beside Jiyu Ziyue. Shun Rui raised an eyebrow and took a seat beside Sheng Huinan. Sheng Huinan lowered his gaze, concealing his disappointment. The dining table was set with 10 dishes, a mix of meat and vegetables, along with a pot of fish maw and chicken soup. During the meal, Jiyu Ziyue occasionally served food to Shen Shuwei. His movements smooth and natural, as if it had become a habit. Shen Shuwei responded with a faint smile. Sheng Huinan noticed the tenderness in Shen Shuwei's eyes and felt as if his heart were being torn apart, the food in his mouth tasting like wax. Chapter 83, Just want to quietly protect her. The dinner was finished in a relaxed and cheerful atmosphere. After the meal, everyone moved to the spacious living room, where the servants brewed a pot of tea and brought out some post-meal fruits. The two little ones sat beside Shun Shuai, holding their small bowls and eating the blueberries and raspberries inside. The others were chatting over tea. Shun Shuai took a sip of tea, then turned her gaze to Sheng Huainan and asked softly, "Brother Huainan, did everything go smoothly during your trip to the overseas branch?" There was a little trouble at first, but it was all handled properly later." Sheng Huainan glanced at Jiyu Ziyue. "That minor trouble seemed to be related to this guy. That's good." Shun Shuai ate a grape and, after swallowing, continued, "Sang Yu left Haicheng just a couple of days ago, apparently to join a variety show. You two siblings just missed each other." Sheng Huainan smiled faintly. "It's fine. This time I'm back, I'll probably stay in Haicheng for quite a while. I've already found a highly capable person to oversee the overseas branch." Old Master Yu nodded slightly and smiled affectionately. "That's fine then, Huainan. You've been abroad these past few years, and your sister is often away filming. Your parents barely get to see either of you for more than a few days a year." "That's right, so I've decided to stay in Haicheng and not leave." In recent years, Sheng Huainan had stayed abroad primarily to accompany Shun Shuai. Since Shun Shuai chose to remain in Haicheng, Sheng Huainan naturally wanted to stay close to her as well. Even as a friend, he still hoped to see her often and silently watch over her. After chatting for a while, Shun Shuai glanced at her wristwatch, then stood up with Chen Chen and 1111, saying, "It's getting late. I need to take Chen Chen and 1111 back to their room to sleep. Please make yourselves at home." After Shun Shuai took the two children upstairs, Sheng Huainan sat for a while before standing up to say goodbye. "Old Yu, please take care of yourself and rest early. I'll head back now and visit you another day." Old man Yu nodded gently. "All right then, drive carefully on your way back." Sheng Huainan glared at Jiyu Ziyue. "President Jiyu, aren't you going back? Planning to spend the night here?" Jiyu Ziyue smiled and nodded, speaking unhurriedly. "That's right, I'm staying here tonight. Tomorrow, I'll take Shuai and the kids back to the Jiyu family together." Since Jiyu Ziyue often visited the Yu family and stayed late, he would occasionally spend the night in the guest room. After numerous overnight stays, one of the guest rooms became his designated room. Jiyu Ziyue even brought some clothes over and placed them in the wardrobe of the room. Sheng Huainan felt a slight bitterness in his heart. He nodded to Old Master Yu and Shun Rui before turning to leave. Watching Sheng Huainan's lonely retreating figure, Old Master Yu shook his head helplessly. In matters of the heart, sometimes getting hurt is unavoidable. The next morning, after washing up, Shun Shuai changed into her sportswear and sneakers, then walked out of her room and headed downstairs. As soon as she reached the garden downstairs, she saw Jiyu Ziyue standing under the ginkgo tree, dressed in a black tracksuit. His tall and slender figure, along with his striking features, looked particularly handsome in the warm morning light. Noticing Shun Shuai in his line of sight, he smiled and said, "Good morning, Shuai." "Good morning." Shun Shuai walked up to him and replied with a smile, "Shall we go for a couple of laps together?" "Sure, sounds good." Jiyu Ziyue was standing here precisely to wait for her for their morning run. After doing some simple warm-up exercises, Shun Shuai and Jiyu Ziyue started jogging in the garden. While running, they needed to focus on coordinating their breathing, so neither spoke as they quietly jogged forward. After running for over half an hour, Shun Shuai paused and turned to Jiyu Ziyue, asking, "I'm about done. Are you going to keep running?" Jiyu Ziyue wiped his sweat with a towel and replied, "I'm about done too. I'll go with you." After changing clothes and having breakfast, Jiyu Ziyue and Shun Shuai took their two children back to the Jiyu family home. The elders of the Jiyu family had been eagerly awaiting their return, looking forward to the reunion of the family of four. The car had just been parked when Li Peiji eagerly walked over. Shun Ruochen and Shun Ruoshi obediently called out, "Grandma Tilda, Chen Chen, 1111. Li Peiji affectionately took their hands. "Grandma's sweethearts, come, let's go inside. Grandma has prepared lots of delicious treats for you." Jiyu Ziyue and Shun Shuai followed closely behind. After greeting the elders of the Jiyu family, Shun Shuai sat down with Jiyu Shiyu and started chatting. Every time they returned to the Jiyu family home, there was hardly anything left for Shun Shuai to do, as the elders doted on Chen Chen and 1111 as if they were the apples of their eyes. Shun Ruochen played Go with old master Jiyu, while Jiyu Yuanlin pulled up a chair and sat quietly by the side, observing the game without speaking. Li Peizhi first took Shun Ruoshi to try on the newly bought princess dress, then accompanied her to the garden to play on the slide and swing. Only Shun Shuai, Jiyu Shiyu, and Jiyu Ziyue remained in the living room, sitting leisurely on the sofa, sipping tea and chatting. By the way, Shuai, I haven't congratulated you yet. The anniversary celebration event for your Heir jewelry was incredibly well planned this time, Jiyu Shiyu said with a regretful expression. It's a pity I was a step too late and missed out on buying those pieces of jewelry you designed. I already prepared them for you. Shun Shuai rummaged through the bags she had brought, then looked up at Jiyu Ziyue. Ziyue, I can't seem to find them. Where did you put them? Let me see. Jiyu Ziyue walked over to Shun Shuai and crouched down beside her, quickly finding the jewelry box. Shun Shuai took the jewelry box and sat back down next to Jiyu Shiyu. Jiyu Shiyu covered her mouth and chuckled, teasing in a low voice by her ear. Shuai, will I soon be able to call you by the old name again? Maybe, I don't know. Shun Shuai blinked and smiled, pushing the jewelry box toward Jiyu Shiyu. Take a look first at the jewelry I prepared for you. Jiyu Shiyu opened the jewelry box with great anticipation, and her eyes instantly lit up at the sight of an exquisitely designed full set of jewelry. It's so beautiful. Shun Shuai designed the Starry Sea series, which predominantly features a blue color scheme and incorporates numerous ocean-inspired elements. The centerpiece of the necklace is a teardrop-shaped sapphire, surrounded by a circle of small diamonds, resembling a teardrop from the ocean. The bracelet is crafted primarily with pearls and aquamarine, featuring a crystal-clear aquamarine stone threaded among a circle of pearls. Additionally, there are rings and earrings, all with exceptionally beautiful designs and crafted with perfect materials and techniques. This is just too gorgeous. No wonder all the stock sold out in just one day, Jiyu Shiyu said admiringly. Shuai, you're simply amazing. Is there anything you can't do? Shun Shuai chuckled a few times. I'm not omnipotent. There are plenty of things I can't do. Women have no resistance to beautiful jewelry, and Jiyu Shiyu was no exception. She truly adored the set Shun Shuai had designed and immediately took out the bracelet to slip onto her wrist. Oh my, Shiyu, the bracelet on your wrist is really beautiful. Is it newly bought? Li Peizhi walked over and immediately noticed Jiyu Shiyu's wrist. Jiyu Shiyu smiled and replied, it wasn't bought, it was designed by Sister Shuai. Mom, I saved a set for you too, see if you like it. Shun Shuai brought another jewelry box to Li Peizhi and opened it for her to see. Three women sat side by side on the long sofa, chatting endlessly about jewelry and accessories. After spending a warm and pleasant day at the Jiyu residence, Jiyu Ziyue finally sent the mother and her two children back to the Yu family after dinner. Chapter 84, Shun Yuhong realizes his mistake too late. Donghu Yashu, Shun family. Since handing over the company's authority, Shun Yuhong has stopped involving himself in company affairs. Now that he has more free time, Shun Yuhong rarely goes out. He used to enjoy playing golf, but after Mu Ru's scandal, the entire wealthy circle in Haicheng knew he had been cheated on. Not wanting to face those strange looks from people, he could only stay at home and avoid going out as much as possible. Now that he's staying at home all day, Shun Yuhong realizes how large and quiet the Shun family villa is. Shun Yuhong turned off the TV, let out a long sigh, and then looked at the butler, asking, Old Yang, how many years have you been working for the Shun family? The butler replied respectfully, in 3 more months, it will be exactly 20 years. 20 years. Shun Yuhong gazed distantly out the window. 20 years ago, when June was still alive, she often played in the yard with Ruya and Shuai. Time, it seems, has passed in the blink of an eye. The butler assumed a listening posture, nodded, and replied, yes, time flies. Old Yang, you've been by my side for so many years. Tell me, have I made many mistakes? I shouldn't have driven Shuai out of the house. Nor should I have treated Ruya coldly. The butler remained silent for a moment before saying, Mr. Shun, whether you've made mistakes or not doesn't need others to judge. You should know in your heart. In the butler's view, Shun Yuhong had certainly made mistakes. Mu-ru was a hypocritical and materialistic woman to begin with, yet he still insisted on marrying her. Both are mistresses of the household, but Yu Wenjun is dignified and elegant, treating the butler and servants with kindness. Mu-ru, on the other hand, is completely different. She always maintains a superior attitude, pretending to be gentle in front of Shen Yuhong, but behind his back, she is domineering and extremely arrogant. During dinner, Shen Yuhong sat at the dining table, looked at the spread of dishes before him, and let out another long sigh. He instructed the butler, "It's just me at home now. Tell Li Ma that from now on, 3 dishes and 1 soup will suffice." The butler nodded slightly and replied, "Yes, Mr. Shen." After finishing dinner, Shen Yuhong sat alone in the living room for a long time, staring at his phone. After hesitating for a while, he picked up the phone and dialed Shenrui's number. When Shenrui answered the call, he asked directly, "Hello, Dad, what's the matter, Ruia?" Shen Yuhong asked with concern. "Have you eaten?" Shenrui replied indifferently, "I have. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up first." "Well, Ruia, Mu-ru doesn't live at home anymore. Could you move back in? I'm currently living with my sister at the Yu family, and I feel quite comfortable. There's no need to move around." "Are you kidding? How could Shenrui possibly move back to live with him?" Thinking about Shen Yuhong's attitude towards them siblings over the years, Shenrui felt waves of coldness in his heart. Shen Yuhong said dejectedly, "Ruia, I was wrong in the past. I didn't take good care of you and Shui. I truly realize my mistakes now. Can you forgive your father just once? You'd better give up on this idea. Goodbye." With that, Shenrui directly ended the call. Shen Yuhong looked ashen-faced, sighing heavily at his phone. If Shenrui had this attitude, there was no need to even mention Shen Shui's reaction. Recalling what he had done to his daughter, he now wished he could slap himself. He really is such a scoundrel. At that time, Shen Shui had just gotten divorced and was in desperate need of her family's support and encouragement. Yet, to maintain the marital ties with the Jiyu family, he forced Shen Shui to reconcile with Jiyu Zeyue, threatening that she would no longer be welcome in the Shen family if she refused. Later, he even went to the Yu family with Mu-ru and called Chen Chen and 1111 bastards. Slap. At this thought, Shen Yuhong actually raised his hand and slapped himself. The butler standing nearby kept his eyes downcast, nose to heart, but couldn't help sighing inwardly. "Serves him right, old Yang. Pour me a glass of red wine." The butler brought over the red wine and a glass, placing them on the coffee table in front of Shen Yuhong, then poured a glass of wine for him. Shen Yuhong picked up the wine glass and downed the red wine in the goblet in one gulp. He drank one glass after another, finishing an entire bottle, then asked the butler to open a new one. Drinking himself into a stupor, Shen Yuhong staggered to his feet and headed upstairs. The butler helped Shen Yuhong upstairs, intending to take him to the master bedroom, but he waved his hand dismissively. "Not the master bedroom, I want to go to the storage room. I want to see Wenjun's photos." Arriving at the storage room door, the butler found the key to unlock it and casually turned on the light. After Mu-ru married Shen Yuhong, she stored all the belongings related to Yu Wenjun in the storage room. As if sealing away an entire chapter of memories about Yu Wenjun, Shen Yuhong entered the storage room and opened one dusty cardboard box after another. Untouched for years, he took out a photo album, leaned back against the cardboard box, sat on the floor, and flipped through the photos inside. "Old Yang, look, Wenjun was really beautiful when she was young. Oh, I misspoke. To be precise, she has always been this beautiful. Tell me, how lucky am I to have married her? This is Shui in 2nd grade, winning first prize in the National Children's Painting Competition. Shui, my daughter, is truly amazing." The butler stood nearby, listening to Shen Yuhong muttering to himself, but he didn't respond. The photo of that painting left a deep impression on the butler. The young miss was overjoyed at the time, showing her winning artwork and trophy to Shen Yuhong, but Shen Yuhong didn't even spare her a glance. He even pushed her hand away, annoyed that she was blocking his view of the TV. Once the floodgates of memory opened, immense regret swept through Shen Yuhong's heart. What had he done to his son and daughter all these years? Shen Yuhong clutched the photo album, and, fueled by alcohol, sobbed uncontrollably. When Yu Wenjun was on her deathbed, she entrusted him with the care of their children. He had failed Yu Wenjun's dying wish, he had failed his son and daughter, Seeing Shin Yuhong so drunk, the butler turned and walked out, closing the door behind him. Since Shin Yuhong wants to repent, let him stay there and repent all night. Chapter 85, Acquiring the Shin family's shares. Early the next morning, at the Yu family villa, after breakfast, Shin Shuwei and Old Master Yu accompanied the two children to watch the peacocks Old Master Yu kept in the garden. Even though they had seen it many times, when the peacock fanned its tail, Shin Ruochen and Shin Ruoshi still couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow, tilde so beautiful." Shin Shuwei gently stroked their little heads and smiled tenderly. After a while, the butler hurried over and reported, "Elder Yu, Miss Shin Yuhong is here to visit." Old Master Yu glanced at Shin Shuwei. "Shuwei, you decide. The last time Shin Yuhong brought Mu Ru over, he said some very unpleasant things. So Old Master Yu gave instructions that from now on, he would need to be announced before entering and could not freely enter and exit the Yu family." Shin Shuwei didn't even think twice, and directly told the butler, "Uncle Yao, tell him to go back." Even if they met, the father and daughter already had nothing left to say to each other. Okay, the butler directly used the intercom to instruct the security personnel not to let Shin Yuhong in, outside the Yu family villa gate. A security guard approached Shin Yuhong's car and said to him, "Mr. Shin, please go back." This outcome was something Shin Yuhong had already anticipated. Shin Shuwei didn't want to see him. Through the car window, Shin Yuhong said to the security guard, "Could you kindly relay a message for me? Tell them it's about matters related to Hongyu Group's shares, and I'd like to talk with the two siblings." Seeing that Shin Yuhong spoke politely, the security guard relayed the message over the walkie-talkie. After hearing the security personnel relay the message, Old Man Yu raised an eyebrow. "Matters related to shares, Shuwei, perhaps you should meet him and hear what he has to say." Shin Shuwei nodded lightly and turned to the butler, saying, "All right, let him in." Leaving Aunt Zhong to stay with the two children, Old Man Yu and Shin Shuwei walked back to the living room. Old Man Yu instructed a servant to inform Shin Rui and have him come over as well. Shin Rui quickly came downstairs and sat down next to Shin Shuwei. The butler led Shin Yuhong inside, who was carrying several bags of gifts in his hands. The last time Shin Yuhong visited the Yu family, he came to pick a fight. But this time he made sure to observe proper etiquette. Old Master Yu, Shin Yuhong first greeted the elder Yu, then turned his gaze to Shin Rui and Shin Shuwei, calling out, "Ruia, Shuwei." The Shin siblings merely nodded coolly. Grandpa Yu said to Shin Yuhong, "Have a seat and let's talk." Shin Yuhong sat down on the single sofa, looking somewhat nervous. He pursed his lips and said, "Ruia, Shuwei, I know I haven't been a good father, I didn't take good care of you, and instead, I did many things that hurt you. I'm sorry." Shin Rui raised an eyebrow slightly and said coldly, "You wouldn't be so naive as to think that just an apology would make Shuwei and I forgive you, would you? After doing so many wrong things, I don't dare to hope for your forgiveness," Shin Rui said impatiently. "Then you can drop the pretense and get straight to the point. Rome wasn't built in a day. A few sentimental words wouldn't be enough to make the siblings forgive him." Shin Yuhong sighed softly, opened the briefcase he had brought with him, and took out several documents, placing them in front of Shin Rui and Shin Shuwei respectively. "Hongyu Group is the result of decades of my hard work. You are my children, and it's only right that you inherit my assets." Shin Yuhong paused before continuing, "I hold 60% of the shares in the group, I'll keep only 2%, and the remaining 58% will be divided equally between the two of you." The remaining 2% was kept by Shin Yuhong solely for his retirement. When he eventually passes away, it will naturally be inherited by the siblings. What a surprise! Not long ago, Shin Yuhong was still wary of the siblings, not wanting them to covet his assets. Old Man Yu looked at Shin Yuhong in astonishment and asked, "Yuhong, are you really sure about this?" Shin Yuhong nodded affirmatively. "Yes, all my assets will eventually be inherited by the two of them, brother and sister. It's just a matter of giving it to them earlier. Mu Ru betrayed him, Yu Wenjun passed away, and his two children have almost cut off all contact with him. What use is all that money in Shin Yuhong's hands?" Shin Rui looked at the equity gift agreement before him and spoke coldly. "Do you think that by dividing the company shares between us, Shuwei and I would feel grateful to you?" Shin Shuwei remained silent, but she agreed with her brother's perspective. She wouldn't feel grateful to Shin Yuhong just because of the benefits he offered. although Hongyu Group was founded by Shin Yu-hong. How much financial support did the Yu family provide when the business was just starting? How many connections and resources did the Yu family contribute? Shin Yu-hong quickly explained, Ruia, Shui, I don't have that intention. The family assets of the Shun family rightfully belong to both of you siblings. You don't need to feel any gratitude toward me. Sign the documents. Half of my 60% shares belong to Wenjun. Shun Rui and Shun Shui exchanged glances. And after understanding each other's thoughts, they nodded simultaneously. Shun Shui picked up the pen and signed her name on the agreement. Although she didn't care about how the Shun family's assets were distributed or how much she would receive, but Shin Yu-hong transferring the shares to her and Shun Rui was definitely not a bad thing. At the very least, Shun Shui no longer had to worry about Shin Yu-hong causing any more trouble, with only 2% of the shares left in Shin Yu-hong's hands. He effectively lost all say in Hongyu Group. From now on, Hongyu Group would truly be in the hands of the two siblings. Shin Yu-hong took the agreement handed to him by Shun Rui and solemnly placed the document back into his briefcase. He smiled at Shun Rui and Shun Shui and said, I'll give the documents to the lawyer as soon as I get back. Shun Shui responded indifferently, got it. This was the first thing Shun Shui had said to Shin Yu-hong today, and although her tone was cold, Shin Yu-hong was still very happy. The agreement had been signed, and Shin Yu-hong didn't leave immediately. He glanced around, wanting to see his grandson and granddaughter. Having not seen the children, Shin Yu-hong looked at Shun Shui and softly asked, Shui, can I see Chen Chen and 1111? Even just a glimpse from afar would be fine. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid that's not very convenient. Shun Shui looked directly into Shin Yu-hong's eyes. You are not a qualified father. And you shouldn't even dream of being a loving grandfather. These words from Shun Shui deeply pained Shin Yu-hong's heart. You're right, I shouldn't have such a deep sadness appeared in Shin Yu-hong's eyes, and he forced a smile. I'll head back now. If you two siblings need anything, you can call me. A mocking smile curled at the corners of Shun Shui's lips. Wasn't it a bit too late to start trying to be a good father now? Shin Yu-hong picked up his briefcase and walked out. Driving away alone, old man Yu shook his head and sighed. People must take responsibility for their actions. The way he is now is entirely his own doing, Shun Shui said firmly. In any case, I will never forgive him. Shun Rui nodded in agreement. Me too, I'll never forgive him. Not only did Shin Yu-hong fail to take care of his children, but he also believed Mu Ru's words, causing great harm to them. Though the wound has healed, the scar will remain forever. Neither of the siblings will accept Shin Yu-hong's repentance or apologies. Every pitiable person has their own detestable aspects. Everything is the result of Shin Yu-hong's own making. Chapter 86. Business trip to Country M. 3 days later, in the general manager's office, President Shin. You said you want to personally go to Country M to purchase a batch of jadeite rough stones. Qiao Yang frowned, clearly disapproving. Shun Shui placed the signed documents aside and nodded at Qiao Yang. Yes. That's right, Qiao Yang said with slight concern. I heard the situation in Country M hasn't been very stable lately. Maybe we should just make the selection through video instead. What we see in videos differs greatly from the actual items. We can't clearly judge the color and translucency quality through video. Besides, we need some high-quality jade to retain our premium customer base. Hearing Shun Shui's reasoning, Qiao Yang had no rebuttal. Of course. It's impossible to see the quality clearly in a video, which is why the company has been scammed by several suppliers multiple times. The jade rough that looked great in the video turned out to be something completely different when it was actually delivered. Qiao Yang could only suggest, Mr. Shun, then I'll go with you. Qiao Yang, I won't be at the company, so you need to hold down the fort here, Shun Shi said with a smile. You don't need to worry about me. I'll bring 2 bodyguards with me to Country M. Qiao Yang looked surprised. Mr. Shun, you have bodyguards at home. Shun Shi was stunned for a moment. Realizing she had let something slip, she quickly covered it up. What I meant was, to find 2 bodyguards from a security company. Qiao Yang blinked suspiciously and asked, Are temporary hires reliable? Shun Shi replied, Of course they are. Some security company employees used to be special forces. Many security companies serve the wealthy, specializing in protecting personal safety and property. However, Shun Shui doesn't need to hire external bodyguards. The Yu family maintains a dedicated team of bodyguards who are highly capable and loyal. Xiao Yang felt relieved and nodded, saying, "That's good, it's always safer to go with bodyguards." That evening, upon returning home, Shun Shuwei discussed the matter with Old Master Yu. Old Man Yu frowned and shook his head, saying, "Shuwei, I don't approve of you going personally." Shun Shuwei repeated the same words she had said to Xiao Yang to Old Man Yu. After hearing her out, Old Man Yu still shook his head. "Shuwei, your safety is the most important, making money comes second. Besides, is there no one left in the company's procurement department? Do you need to go personally for procurement?" Shun Shuwei retorted, "If I don't want to put myself in danger, should I let the employees go instead? Don't they have families too?" Grandpa Yu took a deep breath and said in a serious tone, "It's better to be safe than sorry. In short, I don't want you to go to Country M. Grandpa, you don't need to worry too much. I'll bring 2 bodyguards and book the best hotel there. After I pick out the jade at the suppliers, I'll go straight back to the hotel and fly back the next day." Grandpa Yu glared at her. "So, you've already made all the arrangements?" Seeing Shun Shuwei nod, Grandpa Yu could only repeatedly tell her not to run around, to always be careful, and to keep the bodyguards by her side. "Got it, Grandpa," Shun Shuwei said with a smile. "I promise I won't run off." The next morning, the Yu family's driver drove Shun Shuwei to the airport. Shun Shuwei was accompanied by 2 bodyguards this time, and as soon as they entered the airport, they attracted a lot of attention. After checking in, one bodyguard pushed the luggage while the other held the tickets. Shun Shuwei sat down on the sofa in the first-class lounge. She took off her sunglasses and used them to point to the sofa opposite. "Zhong Hui, Liu Ming, you two should sit down for a bit too." Going out with bodyguards was already conspicuous enough, but having these 2 tall men in suits standing by her side made her even more noticeable. Zhong Hui and Liu Ming nodded and quietly sat down. Shun Shuwei turned to look out the window, where a Boeing 737 was taxiing on the runway before slowly ascending into the sky. After sitting in the lounge for half an hour, drinking a cup of coffee, and eating a few small desserts, it was time to board. Shun Shuwei boarded the plane and sat down, only then suddenly realizing that she seemed to have forgotten to tell Jiyu Zeyue about her business trip. After sending a message to Grandpa Yu, she then sent a message to Jiyu Zeyue, telling him that she was going on a business trip to Country M and would be back in about 2 or 3 days. After sending the message, the plane was preparing for takeoff, and Shun Shuwei instinctively turned off her phone. Jiyu Zeyue was in the middle of a cross-border video conference when he received Shun Shuwei's message. Upon reading the content of the message, his pupils slightly contracted, and he said to the executives from the overseas branch, "Sorry, please wait a moment." With that, he stood up, walked out of the meeting room, and dialed Shun Shuwei's number. From the other end of the line came a cold, mechanical voice. "Sorry, the number you have dialed is temporarily unavailable. Please try again later." Hearing this voice, Jiyu Zeyue guessed she had already boarded the plane. Jiyu Zeyue quickly called Old Master Yu again to ask for the exact destination Shun Shuwei was heading to. He glanced at the flight information. The next flight, even the fastest one, would be in more than 24 hours. If we were to transfer from another city, it would still take a full day. Jiyu Zeyue immediately had Fang Yu apply for a private jet route. Then he walked back to the conference room and continued the meeting. Applying for a route also takes several hours, and during the waiting time, Jiyu Zeyue felt every second was agonizing. 6 hours later, the application was finally approved. Jiyu Zeyue, accompanied by a dozen bodyguards, took a private jet and followed Shun Shuwei to Country M. After Shun Shuwei checked into her hotel in Country M, she received a call from Mr. Ma, a supplier. Mr. Ma said he wanted to treat her to a meal to welcome her. Shun Shuwei found it hard to refuse, so she arranged to dine at the restaurant in her hotel. Mr. Ma is a Chinese national in Country M, and his family has been in the jade business there for several generations. He has been cooperating with Heir Jewelry for several years and is considered a relatively reliable supplier. After Shun Shuwei and her group arrived at the restaurant, President Ma stood up and waved to her. "President Shun, over here, over here." "Hello, President Ma." Shun Shuwei shook his hand, then looked at his female companion and asked, "Is this your wife?" President Ma introduced. "Yes, this is my wife, Meng Yuan." She's also from Haicheng. So I asked her to come and meet a fellow townsman, Mrs. Ma stood up and smiled brightly at Shen Shui. Hello, I'm Meng Yuan. After exchanging pleasantries, Shen Shui sat down opposite Mr. and Mrs. Ma. Although the food was mediocre, all three were well-traveled and very talkative, so the meal was enjoyed by both hosts and guests. After the meal, Shen Shui arranged with Mr. Ma to visit his raw stone factory tomorrow. Chapter 87 I Came For You. Shen Shui escorted Mr. and Mrs. Ma to the hotel entrance, watched them leave, and then turned back to the hotel lobby with his bodyguards. The five-star hotel she checked into was one of the most luxurious venues in the area, and its security was also top-notch. As she stepped into the opulent hotel lobby, Shen Shui suddenly heard a familiar voice. It sounded like Jiu Ziu's voice. How could he possibly be here? Shen Shui thought it must be her imagination. She muttered to herself. It's only been a few days since I last saw him, and now I'm hearing things. Wei, Jiu Ziu's voice called out once more from not far away. Shen Shui turned her head to look around and asked the bodyguard beside her, "Did you hear something? Was someone calling my name?" Yes, it sounded like Mr. Gu's voice. As Shen Shui searched for Jiu Ziu with her gaze, he strode toward her with long steps. Watching Jiu Ziu approach step by step, Shen Shui showed a surprised expression. It wasn't her imagination. Jiu Ziu had really appeared here. What a coincidence. Blinking her eyes, Shen Shui said to Jiu Ziu, who now stood before her, "Ziu, are you here on business too? What a small world, staying at the same hotel by chance. I'm not here on a business trip." Jiu Ziu's eyes fixed intently on her, and the moment he saw her, the weight in his heart finally lifted. Shen Shui tilted her head slightly, asking in surprise, "Then are you here for a vacation, Shui?" "I came here for you." Jiu Ziu's slightly deep voice brushed lightly across her heart like a feather. Shen Shui felt a stir in her heart. She looked up at him and smiled gently. "It's not a big deal. You didn't have to come all this way for me." The corners of Jiu Ziu's lips lifted as he said softly, "Your safety is the most important thing to me." The two bodyguards stood nearby, doing their best to minimize their presence. These affectionate words made Shen Shui feel a bit embarrassed. She smiled and asked, "Did you just check in? Haven't had dinner yet?" Jiu Ziu nodded. "No, I haven't had dinner yet." "Then let me take you to the restaurant upstairs. I had dinner there tonight with the suppliers." As she spoke, Shen Shui naturally linked her arm with his, and they walked into the elevator together. In an instant, the smile at the corner of Jiu Ziu's lips deepened. Unable to conceal his good mood any longer, the peak dining hours had passed, and the scenic windowside seats became available. Shen Shui and Jiu Ziu walked over and took their seats by the window. The waiter placed the menu in front of them. Shen Shui rested her chin on one hand, pushed the menu aside, and said in English, "A coconut water, please, thank you." Jiu Ziu ordered several local specialties, then looked up at Shen Shui and asked, "Shui, would you like to order a dessert or something?" Shen Shui shook her head gently, "No need. I just had a piece of cheesecake." "All right, we'll have these then." Jiu Ziu closed the menu and handed it to the waiter. Shen Shui picked up the glass, took a sip of water, and then said, "By the way, if I remember correctly, there's only one flight from Haicheng each day. How did you get here?" Jiu Ziu replied with a smile, "Private jet." Shen Shui said with some surprise, "The Jiu family has a private jet. How come I didn't know about it? It was purchased a couple of years ago." "You never asked, so I didn't specifically mention it." Bringing up the topic of a private jet out of the blue might seem like showing off wealth, but Jiu Ziu wasn't the type to flaunt. Shen Shui blinked her bright eyes and asked in confusion, "So you came alone? You knew there might be potential danger here?" "No." Jiu Ziu glanced around and said softly, "The men sitting at the tables near us are all bodyguards I brought along." Shen Shui immediately understood and nodded. "Divide and disperse. This way, they're less conspicuous and can blend into various situations without drawing attention." After the food was served, Jiu Ziu ate quietly while Shen Shui chatted with Grandpa Yu and Shun Rui in the family group chat on WeChat. Learning that Jiu Ziu had actually followed her to Country M out of concern for her safety, both Grandpa Yu and Shun Rui were utterly astonished. Old Man Yu felt increasingly satisfied with Jiu Ziu during this period. Everyone around Shun Shui could clearly see how attentive Jiu Ziyu was to her. After the meal, Shun Shui and Jiu Ziyu walked out of the restaurant side by side. The two entered the elevator one after another. Shun Shui pressed the button for the 10th floor first, then looked up at Jiu Ziyu standing beside her. Ziyu, which floor is your room on? I'm also on the 10th floor. The elevator slowly ascended, stopping at the 10th floor, after stepping out. The two walked along the corridor in the same direction. Quite coincidentally, Jiu Ziyu's room was right across from Shun Shui's. After swiping the room card to open the door, Shun Shui held the doorknob and glanced back at Jiu Ziyu. Get some rest early. See you tomorrow. Millimeter. See you tomorrow. Shun Shui pushed the door open and entered, locking it securely behind her. She then grabbed her pajamas and a towel before heading into the bathroom for a shower. After a refreshing hot shower, Shun Shui sat by the dressing table, drying her hair while checking her phone. She noticed there was a missed video call and checked WeChat. It was from Aunt Zhong, who had called her 5 minutes ago. Shun Shui called back, and the other side answered almost immediately. Miss, please hold on for a moment. Chen Chen and 1111 want to talk to you. As soon as Aunt Zhong finished speaking, Shun Ruochen and Shun Ruoshi appeared on the phone screen. Seeing the two adorable, snow-white children, Shun Shui immediately broke into a happy smile. Chen Chen, 1111, Mommy wasn't home today, were you too good? Shun Ruochen said, we were very good and listened well. Shun Ruoshi said, Mommy, when can you come home? I miss you so much. Mommy is abroad right now, but after finishing work tomorrow, I should be able to fly back the day after, Shun Shui said in a gentle voice. Mommy misses you too, Shun Ruoshi asked in a sweet, childish voice. Mommy, are you going to work alone? Shun Shui replied with a smile. No, Daddy came with me too. Huh, Daddy is here too. Shun Ruochen leaned closer to the phone. Where is Daddy? Shun Shui quickly found an excuse. He's already asleep now. Let's have him video chat with you tomorrow night. Hearing her mother say this, Shun Ruoshi had no choice but to nod. Oh, alright then. Next, the two little ones started talking about trivial matters from kindergarten, what the teacher taught, what they ate at school today. After chatting for a while, Shun Shui told Chen Chen and 1111 a bedtime story. She only ended the video call after they had fallen asleep. Seeing the goodnight message from Jiu Ziyu on WeChat, a warm feeling flowed into her heart. She fell asleep with a joyful mood and had a good night's rest. Chapter 88. Visiting the jade mining area. The next morning, Shun Shui woke up on time around 7 o'clock. Just like usual, she got up, put on her slippers, and walked to the window, pulling open the dark brown curtains. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, she gazed at the faint morning light of the foreign landscape. Although she had visited dozens of countries, this was her first time in Country M. This country had many temples, their roofs adorned in gold and green, looking quite beautiful. Beep beep. The phone on the bedside table emitted a brief notification sound. Shun Shui turned around, walked to the bed, picked up the phone, and glanced at it. Jiu Ziyu. Good morning. The weather is lovely today. Are you awake? Shun Shui's fingers moved slightly as she typed a reply. Just woke up. About to freshen up. See you in the restaurant downstairs in 40 minutes. Jiu Ziyu quickly replied. Okay. Shun Shui put down her phone, gathered her waist-length hair, and casually tied it into a bun. She then walked to the sink to wash her face and brush her teeth. Her clothes were already prepared. After changing, she sat down at the dressing table, applied light makeup, and dabbed on a muted rose-colored lipstick, carrying a single shoulder bag from a niche brand. Shun Shui opened the door and walked out. At that moment, the door across the hallway also opened from inside, and Jiu Ziyu smiled at her. Good morning. Shun Shui nodded with a smile. Yes. Did you rest well last night? Not bad. And you? I slept very well. I even had a video call with the kids before bed. The two chatted as they walked to the elevator lobby and took the elevator downstairs. Zhong Hui and Liu Ming followed Shun Shui at a discreet distance. Last night, they had stayed in the room next to Shun Shui's, taking turns guarding the door and listening for any movement outside. They were constantly vigilant about Shun Shui's safety. During breakfast at the hotel, Jiu Ziyu asked Shun Shui about the information regarding supplier Mr. Ma. After all, he would be accompanying her there shortly and needed at least a basic understanding. Shun Shui swallowed the food in her mouth and briefly explained it to Jiu Ziyu. After finishing breakfast, Shun Shui and Jiu Ziyu went downstairs together, ready to head to the supplier's raw material factory. Stepping out of the hotel entrance, Shun Shui was about to hail a taxi when Jiu Ziyu gently grasped her wrist. Shui, let's take that car up ahead. Jiu Ziyu held Shun Shui's hand as they walked to a black Alphard nearby, and the two of them got into the car one after the other. Shun Shui noticed the license plate was local and raised an eyebrow slightly, asking, "Is this car rented?" "Yes, that's right. The driver is one of my people, so it's more reassuring." Shun Shui sighed inwardly, thinking how thorough Jiu Ziyu's arrangements were in an unstable foreign country. If they happened to hail an unreliable unlicensed taxi, it could spell trouble. The vehicle had enough seats, so Zhonghui and Liu Ming also got in. One took the front passenger seat, while the other sat in the very back row. After everyone was seated, the car slowly moved forward. Shun Shui noticed in the rearview mirror that 3 other cars were following behind. She guessed they were probably all bodyguards from the Jiu family. When they arrived at Mr. Ma's factory, Shun Shui made a point of checking as she got out of the car. Sure enough, those 3 cars were parked nearby, each guarding a different position. "What's wrong, Shui?" Shun Shui turned her gaze back to Jiu Ziyu and smiled, saying, "It's nothing, let's go in." As soon as they stepped through the factory gate, Manager Ma came toward them with his assistant, Director Shin. "Welcome to our factory, please come in." Manager Ma noticed Jiu Ziyu beside Shun Shui and paused for a moment. "This gentleman seems a bit unfamiliar. I don't think I saw him yesterday." Jiu Ziyu was dressed in a perfectly tailored high-end suit, with a handsome and refined appearance, exuding an air of noble elegance. His gaze carried a hint of the commanding presence of someone in a position of authority. If they had met last night, President Ma would not have forgotten. During dinner last night, Shun Shui introduced Zhonghui and Liu Ming as well, telling President Ma that they were her assistants. Shun Shui quickly introduced to President Ma, "This is my friend." Before the last 2 words could be spoken, Jiu Ziyu extended his hand first and shook hands with President Ma. Jiu Ziyu said politely, "Hello, President Ma, my surname is Jiu. My wife has been fortunate to receive your care." Shun Shui, "Mr. Jiu, could you have some shame? We're just ex-spouses." "Oh, so you're President Shin's husband. You two are indeed a perfect match. Welcome to visit and guide us together with President Shin." Mr. Ma made a welcoming gesture and led Shun Shui and the group inside. The Ma family's business is one of the top jade source manufacturers in the region. They own a private mining area where a large quantity of raw jade stones are excavated daily. After touring the factory, the group headed straight to the exhibition hall, where Mr. Ma introduced the available raw jade stones to Shun Shui. The jadeite rough stones displayed in the exhibition hall were of quite good quality. Shun Shui inquired about the prices and selected many large pieces of jadeite. After Shun Shui finished her selection, she paid the full amount on the spot. Arrangements could then be made immediately for customs clearance and shipping back to China. Shun Shui spent the entire time selecting from the dazzling array of jadeite until well past 3 p.m. After finishing the busy work, seeing that there was still time, Mr. Ma asked Shun Shui and Jiu Ziyu if they would like to visit his mining area. Shun Shui was quite curious about the jade mining area. Since it was a rare opportunity to visit Country M and Mr. Ma had warmly invited her, she nodded in agreement. Mr. Ma drove an off-road vehicle, leading the way ahead. After about 5 or 6 minutes, he casually parked the car in an open area. After getting out of the car, Mr. Ma walked over and said to them, "President Shin, President Jiu, just a short walk further, and we'll reach the mine. The path ahead is a bit narrow, so the car can't go through." Shun Shui glanced down at her feet. Fortunately, she hadn't worn high heels today, otherwise, the heels would have sunk into the mud, making it nearly impossible to walk. However, "The pair of leather shoes I'm wearing will probably be ruined." What Mr. Ma called a short walk turned out to be over 10 minutes before we could see the full view of the mine. Looking at the emerald mine before her, Shun Shui felt somewhat astonished. The once lush green mountain had now been stripped bare into a red, barren ridge, devoid of any vegetation. Excavators were digging incessantly, while countless workers pushed wheelbarrows, making trip after trip to transport the unearthed emerald rough stones. Soil and gravel continuously tumbled down, and a nearby river had turned into a muddy yellow color. The sound of machinery rumbled everywhere, and dust filled the air. As they walked, Mr. Ma explained, Mr. Shun, Mr. Gu, here, we use modern mining techniques, employing detectors, explosives, and heavy machinery. After touring the jade mine, Mr. Ma led them back to the parking area. Mr. Ma opened the driver's door of his car, retrieved several invitation letters, and handed them to Shun Shuwei and Jiu Zeyue. Tonight, there's a jadeite rough stone auction, which I'm hosting together with other mine owners. All the stones are unopened and in their original state. If you're interested, you're welcome to attend. Shun Shuwei extended both hands to receive Mr. Ma's invitation, smiling as she said, certainly, if we have the time, we'll definitely go and join in the excitement. Whether they would actually go was another matter, but it was customary to respond politely in the moment. Chapter 89, Attending the Jadeite Auction. After bidding farewell to Mr. Ma and his group, Shun Shuwei and Jiu Zeyue got into the car. Shun Shuwei flipped through the invitation in her hand, which listed the time and location of the auction in Burmese, English, and Chinese. Shuwei, if you'd like to go, I'll accompany you. Clearly, Jiu Zeyue had already seen through her thoughts. Shun Shuwei hesitated slightly and said, there won't be any danger, right? Having worked in the jewelry industry for so many years, one inevitably hears about some of its darker aspects. The jade from Country M and the diamonds from South Africa are both rare resources of exceptional quality and high value. Wealth stirs the hearts of men. In some mines and trading markets, conflicts among major factions frequently occur, and there have even been fatalities as a result. Tonight's auction is organized by several local mines, and there will be strict security on site, Jiu Zeyue said slowly. Besides, we'll have our own bodyguards with us, so there shouldn't be any issues. Shun Shuwei then nodded with a smile. Let's go take a look. I'm quite curious about this jadeite rough stone auction. Sure, if you want to go, we'll go, Jiu Zeyue replied, his gaze carrying a hint of affection as he looked at her. This kind of unopened jadeite rough is like opening a blind box. It looks like an ordinary stone on the outside. No one can predict whether the jade inside will be of good or poor quality once it's cut open. Jiu Zeyue continued her train of thought. Exactly. I once saw a news story about someone who bought a rough stone for a few $100,000 and sold it for over $10 million. Many have made fortunes this way, while others ended up bankrupt after paying a high price for poor quality jade. Shun Shuwei said, once people taste the thrill of winning big with small stakes, many can't turn back. Jiu Zeyue chuckled and replied, anyway, we're just going for fun. Think of it as opening a blind box. The car drove back to the hotel, and since it was still early, Shun Shuwei and Jiu Zeyue went to the restaurant for dinner first. After dinner, the two set off for the venue of tonight's auction, accompanied by over a dozen bodyguards. Exotic buildings flashed past the car windows one after another. Half an hour later, the driver pulled the car into an open-air parking lot. Shun Shuwei glanced out the window. The parking lot was vast, but only a few sparse streetlights illuminated the area, making it appear dim and desolate. Jiu Zeyue stepped out of the car first, then turned and extended his hand toward Shun Shuwei. Shuwei, let's get out. We're here, millimeter, Shun Shuwei responded. Taking Jiu Zeyue's hand as she stepped out of the car, Shun Shuwei's two bodyguards followed behind the two of them, while the bodyguards brought by Jiu Zeyue were scattered in several locations, hidden in the shadows to protect them. Even when entering the auction venue, it's not allowed to bring so many bodyguards. From the moment they got out of the car, Jiu Zeyue never let go of Shun Shuwei's hand. Walking through the dimly lit parking lot, Shun Shuwei felt the warmth from his palm, which brought her a sense of comfort. During the day, this place is a jade trading market, but now one of the venues has been cleared out to host a jadeite rough stone auction. After walking for about 3 minutes, Shun Shuwei and Jiu Zeyue came to a halt. The auction entrance was right in front of them. At the entrance stood over a dozen tall men. Their faces were expressionless, lips pressed tightly together, and their eyes scanned Shun Shuwei's group with vigilance. Zhong Hui politely smiled at them and handed over the 4 invitations. One of the men took the invitation, inspected it, and after confirming it was legitimate, said in English, "Did you bring the money? Go over there to pay the auction deposit, $50,000 per person." After paying the deposit, the security personnel at the entrance let them through. To attend this auction, participants needed an invitation from the organizer and had to pay a $50,000 deposit per person. Shun Shuwei had initially assumed there wouldn't be many attendees, but upon entering, she was surprised to see at least 50 or 60 people seated inside. There are still quite a few people following behind them, coming in one after another. Among those present, some are merchants in the jewelry industry. Just like Shun Shuwei, the others are speculators, hoping to see if they can strike it rich overnight with a small investment. Jiyu Ziyue whispered in Shun Shuwei's ear. "Shuwei, let's sit over there." Shun Shuwei nodded and walked over with Jiyu Ziyue. After Jiyu Ziyue and Shun Shuwei took their seats, Zhong Hui and Liu Ming sat on either side of them, making it easier to protect the two. After a while, Mr. Ma specifically took time out to come over and greet Shun Shuwei. "President Shun, President Jiyu, thank you for honoring us with your presence. I've reserved seats for you in the front row. Let me show you the way." Shun Shuwei politely declined. "Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Ma. We're fine sitting here. After all, it's a blind auction. Sitting in the front row won't make a difference since we can't see clearly either way." "Alright then, I'll go attend to other matters. If you need anything, you can look for my wife. She's sitting in the front row." With that, Mr. Ma turned and walked away to greet other guests. Shun Shuwei glanced toward the front row, where Meng Yuan happened to look back in her direction. Meng Yuan's lips moved slightly, then she pointed to the spot beside her, signaling Shun Shuwei to come sit with her. Shun Shuwei shook her head and held up 4 fingers, indicating to Meng Yuan that there were 4 people on her side, but only 2 seats in the front row. Meng Yuan understood Shun Shuwei's meaning. Seeing there were still empty seats next to Shun Shuwei, she simply stood up and walked over. Zhong Hui, who was sitting to Shun Shuwei's left, had to stand up and give his seat to Meng Yuan. Moving over to the next seat, after sitting down beside Shun Shuwei, Meng Yuan smiled at Jiyu Ziyue and said, "Hello, Mr. Jiyu, I've heard my husband mention you. You're Mrs. Shun's husband, right?" "Hello, Mrs. Ma." Jiyu Ziyue nodded politely in response. Meng Yuan had come over to chat with Shun Shuwei, and after exchanging greetings, she didn't stop talking, eagerly explaining the rules of the auction and sharing some amusing anecdotes from past events. Of course, Meng Yuan was quite tactful in her storytelling, careful not to overwhelm Shun Shuwei with too much detail. After the auction officially began, Meng Yuan finally quieted down. Each piece of jadeite rough stone brought on stage looked almost identical, differing only in size and shape. The starting bid for auctioning jadeite rough stones is determined based on the mining area, the size of the rough stone, and its shape. The host standing on stage merely facilitated the auction process, with no need to introduce the items being auctioned. After the bidding, there is a cutting station set up in the venue where you can have the stones cut open on the spot to see the results. If high-quality jadeite is revealed, the jewelry merchants present can directly make offers to inquire about the possibility of resale. Shun Shuwei also bid on several jadeite rough stones. Since she was already there, she might as well participate. Everyone bids based on intuition, as no one knows the quality of the jadeite inside until it's cut open. Chapter 90, The Ultimate Imperial Green emerges. Today's auction session has now concluded. If you wish to have your rough stones cut, please proceed to the cutting area nearby. Once again, thank you all for your participation. After finishing the announcement in English, the host bowed in gratitude to everyone before striding off the stage. As the hostess, Meng Yuan accompanied Shun Shuwei and Jiyu Ziyue to observe others cutting the jadeite rough stones they had acquired at the auction. The process of cutting open a raw jadeite boulder is both exciting and somewhat terrifying. There's the hope of uncovering high-quality jadeite, but also the fear of finding poor-quality material that could result in a total loss. There are several cutting stations on site, each with its machine in operation. Buyers stand beside the cutting tables, anxiously watching as the raw jadeite is being sliced. "Ah, I see green. It's promising, very promising. I actually think the quality of this piece isn't great," among the crowd of onlookers, numerous discussions reached Shun Shui's ears. The section being cut had already revealed one surface, and the quality was indeed quite mediocre. The buyer's face darkened slightly as he said to the master, "Could you please cut it open in the middle for me to take a look?" The master frowned impatiently. "Isn't it already quite clear? Please," the buyer pleaded in a low voice. "I spent $40,000 on this raw stone." The master gave him a sympathetic glance and, complying with his request, cut the raw stone in half. After the cut, the master poured some water on the surface, making the jade's color clearly visible. This is just the most common bin variety. Spending $40,000 on this rough stone, which is only about 10 centimeters in size, is definitely a loss. That buyer bid on 3 rough stones in total. After one turned out to be a loss, he handed over the other 2. "Please cut these 2 as well." The cutting master didn't say anything and quickly sliced the 2 rough stones on the cutting table with a series of skilled movements. The next 2 pieces turned out to be bean-grade jadeite as well, with even poorer clarity and more impurities than the first one, and their color wasn't particularly good either. The buyer, who had probably spent a considerable amount on them, looked ashen-faced at the results. He picked up his pieces of rough stone and left without a word. Jiu Zhua whispered to Shun Shui, "He spent even more on those last 2 pieces than the first one." Shun Shui asked with a curious expression, "How did you know? My memory is fairly decent." Shun Shui pointed to another piece of raw stone being cut. "Then do you know how much he paid for this one?" Jiu Zhua replied somewhat uncertainly, "If I remember correctly, it should be 15,000. The cutting table has done its work," and the master said to the buyer, "Not bad at all. It's turned out to be ice-type jadeite, probably worth around $100,000. "Really?" The buyer beamed with joy. "That's fantastic. I only spent 15,000 on it. What a profit." "Oh, you're right." Shun Shui looked up at Jiu Zhua. "So, Chunchun's photographic memory comes from your genes." A smile appeared on Jiu Zhua's face as he said, "Of course my son takes after me. 1111 takes after me more, so I'm not at a loss either." Shun Shui said, unwilling to be outdone. Yes. 1111 is a girl. It would be wonderful if she could grow up to be as beautiful as you." Listening to the young couple's conversation, Meng Yuan couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. "I really envy you 2 newlyweds. Your relationship is so good. Do you already have children? How old are they?" Shun Shui smiled and replied, "Yes, our child is almost 4 years old now." Meng Yuan clicked her tongue and said, "I really couldn't tell. You look so young, yet your child is already almost 4. After chatting for a while, the 3 of them quieted down again, turning their attention to the cut raw stone. "Wow, the texture and clarity are good. This piece is definitely profitable. Several buyers in succession have produced jadeite of quite good quality. There were also several people who, like the first buyer to cut the stone, ended up with very poor quality jadeite and had to leave disappointed. One cut to poverty, one cut to wealth, one cut to a shroud. As the saying goes, even immortals cannot judge an inch of jade." Several people lost their entire fortunes tonight. With nothing to show for it, Meng Yuan asked, "Mr. Shun, you've bid on 8 raw stones tonight. Would you like to try opening some of them?" Shun Shui thought for a moment and then nodded in agreement. "All right, then I'll pick 2 to open and see." Shun Shui randomly selected 2 stones from his pile of raw jade, one about the size of a basketball and the other nearly half a meter in length. Zhong Hui and Liu Ming carried those 2 raw stones over. The cutting master first worked on the smaller one, making a tiny window on the side. As the color inside was revealed, the onlookers gasped in astonishment. "Imperial green. Oh my god, it's actually imperial jade. Whose rough stone is this? They've really hit the jackpot." Zhong Hui stood there, with many people casting envious and jealous glances his way. Meng Yuan whispered softly, "Congratulations, President Shun." Shun Shui's voice was even lower than hers. "Just got lucky." This piece of rough jade that yielded imperial green indeed made a profit several dozen times over. Even if the remaining jadeite rough stones only produce bean or glutinous varieties, it would already be enough to break even. After calming his shock, the cutting master continued to work on another slightly larger piece. "That's such a large piece. If this one is also imperial green, it would be truly extraordinary." "That shouldn't be possible." right, the shape of this raw stone is so odd. It doesn't look like high-quality material. TSK, what do you know? How come you've never managed to uncover imperial green? Shen Shui's gaze was fixed on the raw stone. Filled with the anticipation of opening a mystery box, she selected these jadeite rough stones purely based on intuition. Since the surfaces of jadeite rough stones all look the same, it's impossible to tell their quality, so everyone chooses at random. When a small piece was cut, it seemed to reveal a faint hint of white. Is it glass grade? If it's glass-type jadeite, that would be great, and such a large piece too. That man must be the buyer. What incredible luck he has. The onlookers mistakenly thought Zhong Hui was the buyer of these two rough stones and chatted excitedly among themselves. Before long, everyone's eyes widened in astonishment once again. Am I seeing things? Is that really violet jadeite? This is unbelievable. Such a large piece of violet jadeite, one piece of imperial green. One piece of violet jadeite. This luck is absolutely insane. The organizers must be fuming. Who would have thought there'd be imperial green and violet jadeite in unopened rough stones? They've basically lost hundreds of millions. Such a large piece of glass-type violet jade with green floral patterns is extremely rare and hasn't been unearthed in several years. The violet color is rich, and the texture is fine. If made into jewelry, the quality would undoubtedly be stunning. It could easily become the crown jewel of a jewelry, opening up a high-end market and attracting more affluent customers. Shen Shui was already envisioning in her mind what designs could be crafted from this raw material. Meng Yuan lowered her head, concealing the depth in her eyes, and reminded, President Shen, you need to be careful. Someone might be eyeing this piece of jade. Chapter 91. Peril lurks everywhere. After listening to Meng Yuan's gentle reminder, Shen Shui thought to herself, someone has ulterior motives. Who exactly is she referring to? Could the one with ulterior motives be Meng Yuan herself? Shen Shui shot a sharp glance at Meng Yuan before shifting her gaze back to the two exquisite pieces of jade. Amid the earlier discussion, someone had remarked, the organizers must have lost several hundred million. Meng Yuan was standing right beside her at that moment, kindly reminding Shen Shui to be careful. But Manager Ma and Meng Yuan were actually one of the organizers. The two top-quality pieces of jade that Shen Shui had extracted came from the mines owned by several of the organizers. In fact, there was a high chance they came from Manager Ma's mine. Shen Shui acquired the imperial green and violet jade worth hundreds of millions for just a few $100,000. Whether it was the mine owners or the buyers participating in the auction, everyone coveted these two pieces of jade. Many people began scheming in secret. Zhong Hui, being a quick-witted person, saw that only top-grade jade was being extracted and promptly claimed the identity of the buyer. To avoid Shen Shui being exposed in public, Sir, are you selling these two pieces of jade? I'll offer $50 million. A middle-aged man among the onlookers decided to make the first move, placing a bid to see if he could secure the purchase. $50 million is equivalent to 350 million yuan. That's already a huge amount. I'll offer 52 million, I want it too. I'll offer 53 million, 55 million. After that middle-aged man made his bid, many businessmen in the jewelry industry gradually joined in, driving the price higher and higher. Zhong Hui raised his hand and said loudly to them, I don't intend to sell these two pieces of jade. No matter how much you offer, I won't sell them. The wealthy jewelry merchants who had just made bids all showed disappointed expressions. But since Zhong Hui had made his stance clear, there was nothing they could do. Mrs. Ma, thank you for your warm hospitality. It's getting late, so we'll head back now. Shen Shui turned to bid farewell to Meng Yuan. Oh, are you leaving already? Meng Yuan smiled at her. Aren't there still 6 raw stones left to cut? Shen Shui met Meng Yuan's gaze, and for some reason, a chill crept into her heart, sending a shiver down her spine. What if the other jade raw stones Shen Shui had bid on all turned out to be of decent quality? Perhaps their group wouldn't be able to leave this place anymore. Jiu Zhua seemed to sense Shen Shui's unease. He raised his hand to wrap his arm around her shoulders, silently soothing her emotions. Shen Shui took a deep breath and smiled at Meng Yuan, saying, Yes, I feel a bit tired and would like to go back to the hotel to rest first. We can cut the remaining raw stones another time. Meng Yuan nodded. All right, let me walk you to the car. The three of them started walking toward the exit. When they reached the main gate, Meng Yuan noticed that Zhong Hui and Liu Ming hadn't followed. She asked in confusion, "Ms. Shen, your two assistants don't seem to be coming with us." Shen Shui replied calmly. "We came in 2 cars. They're taking the other car back." Meng Yuan nodded thoughtfully and didn't say anything more, accompanying Shen Shui and Jiu Ziyue all the way to the car and watching them get in and drive away. Before the car started moving, Meng Yuan glanced at the rear of the Alphard. Indeed, the jade pieces were not in the car Shen Shui was riding in. After the car left the parking lot, Shen Shui finally let out a sigh of relief. She looked up at Jiu Ziyue and asked, "Ziyue, have you arranged everything?" Before stepping out, Jiu Ziyue made an excuse to go to the restroom, but in reality, he was secretly making some arrangements. Jiu Ziyue said in a low voice, "Yes, don't worry, everything has been taken care of." Shen Shui sighed lightly. Sigh. "I don't know if I should consider myself lucky or unlucky tonight." "Why do you say that?" Jiu Ziyue's deep eyes fixed on her. "Being able to uncover 2 pieces of top-grade jade is definitely good luck. I'm really happy that we found the imperial green and violet jade, but this also means we'll attract unwanted attention." Jiu Ziyue held Shen Shui's hand and said gently, "Don't be afraid, I'm here, nothing will happen." Shen Shui didn't pull her hand away. Instead, she moved her fingers slightly and intertwined them with his. With so much happening recently, and Jiu Ziyue staying by her side all along, she felt deeply touched in her heart, knowing the jade isn't in our car. "Those people probably won't chase us, right?" Shen Shui paused, her voice tinged with concern. Zhong Hui and Liu Ming led them away. Could they be in danger? Though it was the bodyguard's duty to protect her, Shen Shui couldn't help worrying about their safety. The best outcome would be for everyone to make it out unharmed. Shen Shui had just texted Zhong Hui, telling him that if push came to shove, they should abandon the 2 pieces of jade. Staying alive was what mattered most. "I've arranged for someone to meet them. There shouldn't be any issues." Jiu Ziyue wasn't entirely confident either. The combined value of those 2 pieces of jade was close to 1 billion yuan. No one could say for sure how many groups had their eyes on them. Shortly after Shen Shui left, Zhong Hui and Liu Ming drove away with the jade. "The young lady's luck is truly extraordinary." Liu Ming spoke while keeping an eye on their surroundings. Zhong Hui, focused on driving, simply responded briefly, "Yes, really good luck. Let's hope we can have some too." They are now live targets, drawing all the fire. If luck isn't on their side, they might not make it through tonight. Liu Ming pressed his lips together and fell silent, his gaze wary as he looked out the car window. After crossing 2 streets, Liu Ming suddenly spoke up, "There are 7 or 8 cars following us. 2 of them belong to the Jiu family." Millimeter, got it. Zhong Hui glanced at the rearview mirror and saw a van turning at the T-junction, now following their car. The atmosphere in the car grew increasingly tense as they remained on high alert. About 10 minutes later, the car entered a dimly lit tunnel. After emerging from the tunnel, 5 identical cars suddenly appeared on the road ahead. The car model and license plate were identical to Zhong Hui's vehicle. Zhong Hui and Liu Ming were dressed in black, wearing black baseball caps. The other 5 cars had passengers dressed exactly like them. The teams following behind were completely baffled by what they saw. There were 6 identical cars on the road, making it impossible to tell which one they were supposed to track. At the fork in the road, the 6 cars split up and headed in different directions. After driving 3 more blocks, only 2 cars remained behind Zhong Hui's vehicle. Moreover, one of them was a car belonging to the Jiu family's bodyguards. Zhong Hui and Liu Ming finally relaxed their tense nerves. Those 5 identical cars must have been arranged by Jiu Ziyue. After creating confusion, they could disperse those groups of people. The black car driven by the Jiu family's bodyguards suddenly accelerated and kept changing lanes, making it impossible for the car tracking Zhong Hui to follow closely behind. Under the cover of the Jiu family's bodyguards, Zhong Hui and Liu Ming finally managed to escape successfully. Liu Ming let out a light sigh and said, "Thanks to President Gu's careful arrangements, we were able to get away safely." "That's right, all thanks to President Gu's resourcefulness. We saved our lives and also managed to protect the young lady's jade." Zhong Hui continued driving the car forward, heading to a safe location to reunite with Shen Shui and Jiu Ziyue. Chapter 92, Forced to share a room. The car moved through the crisscrossing streets. with dim yellow streetlights casting mottled shadows through the windows. For safety reasons, they did not return to the five-star hotel where they had stayed the previous night. It was unclear whether any of the forces targeting Jong-hui included people from Mr. Ma's side. Now that Jong-hui had successfully escaped, those with ill intentions must have been furious. Mr. Ma and Meng Yuan knew they were staying at that hotel if they arranged for people to stake out the place. Shun Shuwei and the others might be in danger. After more than an hour, the car drove to the outskirts, far from the city. It was pitch black outside, with only faint outlines of mountains and trees visible. After driving a bit further, the driver turned the steering wheel and entered a walled parking lot. After getting out of the car, Shun Shuwei looked at the hotel in front of her and gasped in surprise. I didn't expect to find such a luxurious hotel in such a remote place. The hotel is an American-style building from the 1970s, surrounded by lotus ponds and lush gardens, enveloped in greenery and filled with floral fragrance. This environment makes one feel very comfortable. Well, this hotel was opened by a friend of mine, but he went back to his home country recently and isn't here now. Shun Shuwei nodded lightly. A familiar place. Then we can get a good night's sleep tonight. They'll never find this place. Jiu Ziua led her into the lobby. A young woman in uniform stood at the front desk, seemingly prepared in advance. Seeing the couple enter, she immediately produced the pre-arranged keycards and placed them on the counter. Mr. Jiu, Mrs. Jiu, the receptionist smiled. This is your room key. These are for the others. Jiu Ziua took the keycards and nodded politely. Got it, thank you. Walking down the carpeted hallway, Shun Shuwei tugged at his sleeve, widened her eyes, and asked in a low voice, are we sharing a room tonight? There aren't many rooms left in this hotel. With the two of us and the bodyguards, there are 20 people in total. There's really no other way. Jiu Ziua narrowed his dark eyes and smiled. Don't worry, I can sleep on the sofa or the floor. Promise me, no backing out. Shun Shuwei pouted helplessly and turned to walk ahead. Jiu Ziua's lips curled upward as he walked briskly by her side. This hotel had a relatively small floor area and was a resort property, so business was usually quite good. There really weren't that many vacant rooms available. Of course, Jiu Ziua wanted to share a room with Shun Shuwei, but he would never resort to such tactics, nor would he take advantage of someone in a vulnerable position. Upon finding the room number, Shun Shuwei stopped. Jiu Ziua swiped the keycard to open the door and reached in to turn on the lights. The room was furnished with teak furniture, and a large screen TV hung on the wall. Near the window, a two-seater sofa was placed. Shun Shuwei casually placed her shoulder bag on the table and walked over to sit on the sofa. The sofa was very soft, and Shun Shuwei sank into it completely, looking up at the chandelier on the ceiling. Oh, our luggage is still at that hotel. Remembering the luggage, she turned to look at Jiu Ziua. I've already arranged for the bodyguard to go get the luggage. It should be brought over later. Jiu Ziua noticed the fruit platter. Shuwei, would you like some grapes? I'll go wash some. Sure, thank you. Having eaten dinner early and gone through such a nerve-wracking experience, Shun Shuwei was indeed feeling a bit hungry. Jiu Ziua quickly washed the grapes and brought them over, placing them in front of Shun Shuwei before sitting down beside her. After connecting to the internet, Shun Shuwei finally saw that Aunt Zhong had made several video calls to her. It's currently past 10 p.m. local time here, while back home it's already late at night, and the children must be asleep by now. Shun Shuwei replied to Nanny Zhong's message, saying she was quite busy tonight and couldn't video call the kids, but she would be back tomorrow. She had originally promised to video call the children tonight together with Jiu Ziua, but with the sudden incident disrupting everything, she was so focused on getting away that she completely forgot about it. After finishing a plate of grapes, Shun Shuwei idly scrolled through her phone, browsing domestic news. Knock, knock, knock. A very light knock came from outside the door. Jiu Ziua walked to the door, cautiously peered through the peephole to confirm it was one of their own, and only then opened the door. Jong-hui, come in and talk. Jong-hui stepped inside and stood beside Shun Shuwei, reporting the situation to her. Good, as long as you're all safe. Shun Shuwei nodded in agreement. Jiu Ziua handed the other 9 room cards to Jong-hui and said, arrange for everyone to get some good rest tonight. Got it, thank you, President Jiu. Jong-hui pocketed the room cards and turned to leave. He and Liu Ming still needed to quietly move the jade into the room. Leaving it in the car wasn't safe. Before long, the door was knocked on again. This time it was Ji Yuzua's people who brought the luggage over from that hotel. After getting the luggage, Shen Shuwei pulled out her pajamas and towel and went to take a shower first. After showering and putting on her pajamas, Shen Shuwei opened the bathroom door and stepped out. Enveloped in a cloud of warm steam, Ji Yuzua sat on the sofa with a laptop on his lap, seemingly busy with work. Shen Shuwei wiped her damp long hair with her hand and glanced at him subtly. He really was a workaholic, never missing a chance to handle work. Did you wash your hair? Let me help you dry it. Ji Yuzua placed the laptop on the coffee table, stood up, and walked behind Shen Shuwei, taking the hairdryer from her hand. No need. Shen Shuwei's soft voice was already drowned out by the sound of the hairdryer. Ji Yuzua helped Shen Shuwei dry her hair. Gazing at her beautiful face through the dressing table mirror, having just taken a hot shower, her cheeks were tinged with a faint pink, exuding a radiant beauty like blooming peach blossoms. Ji Yuzua's fingers combed through her long hair as his heart pounded like a drum. Shen Shuwei raised her eyes slightly to glance at the mirror, only to suddenly meet Ji Yuzua's gaze brimming with affection. Their eyes locked, and the air was thick with an ambiguous atmosphere. Thank you for watching. This is a long novel. If you'd like to see the continuation, please leave a comment below saying looking forward to the next part, or give the video a like. I'll update promptly based on your feedback. See you next time.